Many people think medieval peasants lived, worked, and died in exactly the same place. That's not actually true. They travelled surprisingly large amounts and for all sorts of different reasons. Here's what travel was really like for a medieval peasant. Hey, quick thing before we start. If you actually listen to these regularly, hit like or subscribe. I always wonder where everyone's at, so comment your city and what time it is. Weird to think some of you are having breakfast in London while I'm recording this at night here in the States. Alright, tonight we're travelling back to medieval England, but before we go anywhere, get comfortable. Seriously, take a second, adjust whatever needs adjusting. You're not going to want to move once we start. Your eyes open to darkness. The rough straw mattress pokes through the thin cloth beneath you, each little stalk finding exactly the most uncomfortable spot on your back. The air is thick with smoke from the dying embers in the hearth, mixed with the smell of unwashed bodies and last night's pottage. This isn't some fancy manor house. It's your one-room cottage where your entire family sleeps. All of you. Together, on the floor. You're not supposed to be awake yet. The roosters haven't even started their morning chaos, but today's different. Today, you're leaving. Imagine this for a second. You're a medieval peasant in the year 1350. You've spent your entire life in a village so small it doesn't even have a proper name. People just call it the settlement by the old oak. The furthest you've ever been is the neighbouring market town, maybe 3 miles away. Most people you know have never gone farther than that. Your daily life is planting crops, tending animals, repairing tools, rinse and repeat until you die. Probably young. You sure about this madness, Will? Your wife whispers, her voice cutting through the pre-dawn silence. Jerusalem is half a world away. People die on these pilgrimages. I made a vow, you whisper back, careful not to wake the children piled around you like puppies. During the plague, if we survived, I'd make the journey. God spared us. Now I pay my debt. You're thinking, there has to be a better way to thank God. Spoiler, there wasn't. See, here's the thing about medieval peasants that most people get completely wrong. They weren't actually stuck in their villages like everyone assumes. They travelled a lot for all kinds of reasons. Sure, about 95% of the population were farmers who worked the land, but that didn't mean they never left home. The first step, though? Getting permission. Yeah, if you were a villain, that's a peasant tied to the land, not a Disney bad guy. You technically needed your lord's okay to travel, but it wasn't some massive formal process. The viral script I found says it was sought and given quite easily, and wasn't really that formally done. Basically, you'd tell the local manor steward you wanted to make a pilgrimage, he'd grunt and wave you on, and that was that. Now you're up, moving quietly in the darkness, pulling out the small bundle you've prepared. What do you pack when you're about to walk across Europe? Not much, because you're carrying it all. On your back, for months, a spare tunic, a wooden bowl and spoon, a small knife, a water flask, some dried bread and cheese that'll last maybe 3 days if you're lucky, and most importantly, 3 silver pennies sewn into the hem of your tunic. Your entire life savings. The children will help with the planting, your wife says, her face a pale oval in the darkness. Old Matilda promised to check on us. You can feel the weight of it now, not just the pack, but the choice. You're leaving your family for what might be a year, maybe more, maybe forever if you die on the road, and that's not exactly unlikely. I'll be back before the harvest, you say, hoping it's true. From outside comes the soft sound of someone clearing their throat. Your travelling companion, Edwin, right on time. He's been waiting for this day as eagerly as you have, ever since you both made that drunken vow in the alehouse when the plague finally left your village. His wife's probably happy to be rid of him, your wife mutters, but there's a smile in her voice. You step outside into the chill morning air. The sky is just turning that deep blue that comes before sunrise. Edwin's breath makes clouds in the cold. Ready to see the world, Will? He grins, leaning on his walking staff. He's got a proper pilgrim's hat with a wide brim and a cloak that looks almost new. As ready as I'll ever be, you say, giving your home one last look. Hold up. Let me paint you a picture of what these guys are carrying, because this isn't your REI ultralight backpacking setup. Medieval travellers, especially pilgrims, had a specific look. You'd have a staff, basically a walking stick, but also handy for defending yourself. You'd wear a scrip, a small bag tied at your waist for food and essentials. If you were officially a pilgrim, you might sew a cross onto your clothes, maybe a broad-brimmed hat to keep off rain and sun. And when you returned, you'd proudly wear a badge or trinket from the shrine you visited, like a medieval, I went to Jerusalem and all I got was this lousy badge souvenir. The two of you set off down the rutted dirt path that leads away from the village. The first birds are starting to sing, and there's a hint of pink on the horizon. Your boots, really just shaped leather wrapped around your feet, crunch on the frozen mud. It's early spring, the worst possible time to travel because the roads turn to soup when the ground thaws, but you need to leave now to have any hope of returning before winter. Oh, and medieval roads, not what you're picturing, like, at all. See, by the 1300s, the amazing Roman roads were mostly in terrible shape. As the viral script tells us, some were looked after and maintained, others were in really bad condition, and many were completely abandoned because nobody used them anymore. Most paths were more like what we'd call bridleways or footpaths today. You had the right to travel along them, but there was no actual road surface, just dirt or mud or both. The first mile is easy. You know this path like you know your own hands, but then you reach the fork where one path leads to the market town and the other, well, you've never actually taken it before. This is already farther than most of your neighbours will ever venture. Which way to London? Edwin asks, scratching his beard. You don't know, you reply, a flutter of panic in your chest. I thought you knew. This is the moment when modern people would pull out their phones and check Google Maps, but medieval navigation was completely different. Instead of maps, travellers used what were called itineraries, basically lists of places you'd pass through to get to your destination. The priest said, follow this path until we reach the King's Road, then south to the Abbey, then ask again, you say, remembering the instructions you'd memorized. Asking for directions. That's your big plan? Edwin doesn't sound impressed. That's how it's done, you insist. We go from place to place, asking which road leads to the next place on our list. He shrugs, adjusting his pack. Seems like there should be a better way. When you invent one, let me know, you mutter, taking the right-hand path. The sun is properly up now, turning the morning frost into a slick dampness that makes the path treacherous. You're glad for the staff, using it to probe suspicious puddles and steady yourself on slippery slopes. 3 hours later, you reach your first milestone, a weathered stone cross, marking where your local path meets a larger road. This is officially the farthest from home you've ever been. Look at that, Edwin says, pointing down the road. People. Coming towards you is a small group of travellers, a man leading a donkey laden with goods, a woman walking beside him, and what appears to be their son, a boy of maybe 12. Good morning, travellers, the man calls as they approach. Where are you bound? Jerusalem, you answer, trying to sound like this is something you do all the time and not the most terrifying decision of your life. The man's eyebrows shoot up. The Holy Land? That's ambitious. He looks you both up and down, taking in your simple clothes and meagre supplies. You're pilgrims, then? We are, Edwin says proudly. And you? Merchants, the man replies, selling cloth in the market towns. This is my wife, Emma, and our son, John. Emma gives you a nod but keeps her distance. Smart woman, you don't know these people from Adam, and in medieval times, strangers could be dangerous, though not as dangerous as people think. The merchant leans on his walking stick. If you're headed to London first, you do well to join us. Road's been clear of bandits lately, but there's safety in numbers. You glance at Edwin, who shrugs. We'd be grateful, you say. Ever been to London? The merchant asks as you fall into step beside them. Never left the Shire before today, you admit. The merchant laughs. Oh, you're in for a shock then. 100,000 souls, they say. More people than you can imagine, all crammed together. The noise, the smell. He shakes his head. Nothing like it in England. Is it true the buildings are 3 stories tall? Edwin asks, eyes wide. Some are 4 or 5, the boy pipes up, clearly excited to share his knowledge. And there are ships bigger than houses on the river. You try to imagine such things, but can't quite make your mind form the pictures. It's like trying to imagine what's beyond the stars. As you walk, the merchant, Thomas is his name, tells you about the road ahead. The next village is about 5 miles on, with an alehouse where travellers can get a hot meal. Then another 7 miles to a small town with a decent inn. If you keep a good pace, you might make London in 5 or 6 days. And from London to the coast, then a ship to France. Then you trail off, the enormity of the journey suddenly hitting you. Or 1 step at a time, Thomas says kindly. That's how all journeys work. Just focus on reaching the next village for now. The day wears on, and you quickly discover that walking from sunrise to sunset is nothing like working your fields. Different muscles ache, different blisters form. By midday, you're already wondering if you've made a terrible mistake. Then it starts to rain. Not a gentle spring shower, but a proper downpour that turns the road into a muddy river within minutes. Your cloak provides some protection, but soon water is running down your neck and your boots are soaked through. Joys of travel, Thomas shouts over the drumming rain, seemingly unbothered. His family quickly produces oiled cloth hoods that keep the worst of it off. The road becomes a nightmare, a churned-up mess of mud so deep it sometimes reaches your ankles. At one point you come to a section where the entire path has become what the viral script calls a vast lake of mud. It's completely impassable. Now what? You ask, staring at the mud lake. Thomas doesn't hesitate. He turns and leads his donkey straight through a farmer's field, trampling a path through the young wheat. We can't do that, you gasp, scandalized. That's someone's crop. Actually, we can, Thomas says over his shoulder. Medieval law allows travellers to go around obstacles, even if it means crossing someone's land. It's permitted. The farmer won't be happy, you mutter, reluctantly following. Probably not, Thomas agrees cheerfully, but it's the law. And he's right. This was an actual medieval rule. Travellers were legally allowed to circumvent obstacles by going through fields and even damaging crops if necessary. The viral script notes it was probably frowned upon by the farmer, but it was actually permitted by law. Travel was considered that important. By late afternoon, you're exhausted, soaked, and questioning all your life choices. Just when you think you can't take another step, you see smoke rising from chimneys ahead. The village. Almost there, Thomas encourages. Hot food and a fire await. And ale, Edwin adds, hopefully. The alehouse is crowded with other travellers waiting out the rain. The heat and noise hit you like a wall as you enter. Dozens of bodies packed together. The smell of wet wool and sweat mixing with smoke from the fire and the rich aroma of something cooking. 4 more, the alley-keeper calls, somehow making space at an already crowded table. Pilgrims by the look of you too. You sink onto the bench, legs trembling with fatigue. Someone slides a wooden bowl of pottage in front of you, a thick stew of vegetables and a little meat, and a cup of ale. You've never tasted anything so good in your life. As you eat, you listen to the conversations swirling around you. Merchants discussing prices in London, a messenger complaining about the condition of the bridges further south, 2 monks debating the shortest route to Canterbury, a group of pilgrims just returned from Santiago de Compostela sharing tales of the wonders they'd seen. This is your first taste of the wider world, and despite your exhaustion, you find yourself fascinated. These people have seen things you've never imagined, been places you've only heard of in church sermons. We should get badges, Edwin says through a mouthful of bread, nodding towards the returned pilgrims. Each wears a small shell pinned to their cloaks, proof they reached Santiago. When we get to Jerusalem, something to show we made it. Let's focus on making it through tomorrow first, you reply, but you can't help imagining yourself returning home, proudly wearing some exotic token from the Holy Land. As night falls, the alley-keeper shows you where you can sleep. Not a private room, not even a bed, but a space on the floor of the main room, alongside other travellers too poor or too humble for better accommodations. You spread your cloak on the rush-strewn floor, using your pack as a pillow. Unlike your cozy bed right now, with its soft pillows and warm blankets, medieval travellers often slept on floors crammed together with strangers for warmth. There was no privacy, no comfort, just bodies seeking shelter from the elements. Thomas and his family have secured a spot near the fire. He catches your eye and raises his cup in salute. First day on the road, he calls. Only about 400 more to Jerusalem. Edwin groans beside you, already half asleep. You stare up at the smoke-blackened beams of the ceiling, listening to the rain drumming on the thatch roof. Just this morning, you woke in your own home, surrounded by family. Now you're miles away, lying among strangers, embarking on a journey that might take a year or more. And this is only the beginning. As you drift towards sleep, you find yourself both terrified and exhilarated. Tomorrow will bring new roads, new challenges, new sights. For better or worse, you've joined the great medieval tradition of travel, one step at a time, one village to the next, following roads that lead to places beyond your imagination. Not so different, perhaps, from the journeys we still make today, just with considerably more mud. Morning comes too soon. You wake to someone stepping over your legs, the alehouse already bustling with activity before the sun is fully up. Your muscles scream in protest as you sit up, discovering new pains in places you didn't know could hurt. One day of walking and you feel like you've been trampled by oxen. Rise and shine, pilgrim, Thomas the merchant calls, already loading his donkey by the door. Road waits for no man. Edwin groans beside you, his face a perfect picture of regret. I'm thinking we should have just donated some money to the church instead of this madness. Too late now, you mutter, reaching for your boots. They're still damp from yesterday's rain, and putting them on your blistered feet feels like torture, not like your warm, dry socks right now. The morning is crisp and clear, a welcome change from yesterday's downpour. After a breakfast of thin porridge, you set out again with Thomas's family. The muddy road has partially frozen overnight, creating treacherous ridges that threaten to turn an ankle with each step. What's that ahead? Edwin asks, squinting at the horizon where something straight and raised cuts across the landscape. Ah! Thomas sounds excited. We're coming to one of the old Roman roads. Built properly, those were. And he's right. As you approach, the difference is striking. Ahead stretches a raised road paved with fitted stones, running straight as an arrow toward the horizon. After a day of trudging through muddy tracks, it looks like a highway to heaven. Sweet mercy, Edwin breathes as you step onto the paved surface. This is amazing. Romans knew what they were doing, Thomas nods appreciatively. Built about 2,000 miles of roads across England, some still good as the day they were made. Others, he gestures to a section ahead where stones have clearly been pried away, leaving gaps in the surface. What happened there, you ask? Thomas snorts. People took the stones for their own buildings. Why quarry new ones when perfectly good cut stones are just sitting there? The little boy, John, pipes up. That's stealing, his father shrugs. Romans have been gone a long time, boy. Nobody's maintaining these roads except in a few important places. You walk more easily now, making better time. The raised surface means water drains off rather than turning to mud. And the solid footing is a blessing for your sore feet. How'd they build these anyway? Edwin asks, admiring the neat construction. Layers, Thomas explains. Dig a trench, fill it with rubble, then gravel, then fitted stones on top, raised in the middle so rain runs off. Brilliant, really. So why don't we still build roads like this, you wonder? Emma, who's been quiet most of the morning, finally speaks. Who's we? The king? Lords? Neither has money to spend on roads when there are wars to fight. Merchants? We don't own the land. The church? They're busy building cathedrals. She has a point. In medieval England, there was no department of transportation, no taxes collected specifically for road maintenance. Most paths existed simply because people used them enough to wear away the grass, and they remained as rough tracks unless a local lord or abbey had specific reason to improve them. Around midday, the Roman road you've been following simply ends. The neat paved surface stops abruptly, giving way to an ordinary dirt track that winds through a small wood. What happened? Edwin asks, staring at the transition in dismay. Probably ran out of money, Thomas says with a shrug. Or maybe it goes somewhere nobody wants to go anymore. Towns rise and fall, roads follow the people, not the other way around. The dirt track is a rude awakening after the comfort of the Roman road. It twists and turns, following the natural contours of the land rather than cutting straight through. In some places, it's barely wide enough for two people to walk side by side. Damn it, Thomas suddenly shouts, bringing the group to a halt. Ahead, a massive oak has fallen across the path, completely blocking the way. Now what? You ask, remembering yesterday's detour through the farmer's field. Thomas studies the surroundings. On one side of the path is a steep slope, impossible to navigate with the donkey. On the other, dense undergrowth would need to be hacked through. Neither option looks promising. We backtrack, he sighs. Find another way. You stare at him in disbelief. Backtrack? How far? Mile? Maybe 2. There was a fork a ways back. Edwin curses under his breath, and you can't blame him. Every step is precious when you're walking all the way to Jerusalem. Wait, Emma says suddenly. John, climb that tree and look ahead. See if the path clears beyond the fallen oak. The boy scrambles up a nearby tree with the ease of youth, disappearing into the branches. A moment later, his voice floats down. There's a big clearing just past the tree, and I think I see houses. Thomas's face brightens. A village? We must be closer than I thought. But how do we get around this, you ask, gesturing at the massive trunk. We could try going through, John suggests, dropping down from the tree. Through? Edwin echoes. Look. The boy points to the tangle of branches. There's a gap between those big limbs. If we break off some of the smaller branches, we might squeeze past. You all examine the spot he's indicating. It would be tight, especially for the donkey, but not impossible. Worth a try, Thomas decides. Better than backtracking. For the next hour, you all work together, breaking and clearing branches until there's a narrow passage through the fallen tree. Getting the reluctant donkey through proves to be a challenge involving much pushing from behind you and coaxing from the front, Thomas, but eventually you all make it to the other side. True to John's word, the path soon opens into a clearing, and beyond it, the smoke from cooking fires marks a small village. See? Thomas grins, looking sweaty but triumphant. That's why you bring children when you travel. Sharp eyes, small enough to climb trees, and they don't complain nearly as much as grown men. He gives Edwin a pointed look. I wasn't complaining, Edwin mutters, just expressing concerns. The village is tiny, maybe 20 households clustered around a central well. Dogs bark as you approach and curious faces appear in doorways. Travellers, someone calls, and a round-faced man hurries towards you. Welcome, welcome. Are you staying the night? My brother runs the inn, best beds in the county. It's barely past noon, Thomas points out. Yes, but the next village is a good 12 miles and the road's washed out at the river crossing, the man explains. You'd not make it before dark. Thomas glances at the sky, then at you and Edwin with your obvious exhaustion. Perhaps we should rest here, he suggests. Get an early start tomorrow. You're about to argue 12 more miles seems doable, when the man adds, bridge collapsed last week in the floods. They're rebuilding, but for now it's a long detour to the ford. That settles it. Better to rest and tackle the river crossing fresh in the morning. The inn is smaller than the alehouse where you spent last night, but cleaner. The innkeeper, indeed the welcoming man's brother, shows you to the sleeping area. Unlike the rush-strewn floor of last night, this establishment boasts actual beds, wooden frames with rope supports and straw-filled mattresses. They're communal, of course. 3 large beds that could each sleep 4 or 5 people packed tightly together. 1 silver penny for a place in the bed, the innkeeper tells you. Half that for floor space. You hesitate, weighing your meagre funds against the promise of a real bed. Floor space would be cheaper, but after 2 days of walking, your body craves something better than hard planks. I'll take the bed, you decide, fishing out one of your precious silver pennies. It's a significant expense. That penny could buy food for several days, but right now, sleep seems more important than saving money. Edwin makes the same choice, and soon you're both sitting at a table in the inn's main room, nursing cups of ale and waiting for the promised meal. You know what surprises me most about travel so far? Edwin muses, looking around at the other patrons. Mostly local farmers come to drink after their day's work. How much everything hurts, you suggest. He laughs. Besides that, it's how normal everyone is. Growing up, the priest made it sound like anyone beyond our village was practically a different species. But that merchant family, they could be from our own village. You nod, understanding what he means. Makes you wonder what else they got wrong. Oh God, are you two going to get philosophical? Thomas groans, joining your table with a fresh cup of ale. Every pilgrim does this, 2 days on the road, and suddenly they're questioning the nature of existence. Just making observations, you say, slightly embarrassed. Well, observe this. When you're travelling, people are people wherever you go. Some good, some bad, most just trying to get through the day without too much trouble. He takes a long drink. That's why I laugh when city folk worry about dangerous roads and bloodthirsty bandits lurking behind every tree. Roads in England are safer than most people think. Really? Edwin perks up. The stories we hear... Oh, there are criminals about, Thomas concedes, but not nearly as many as tales would have you believe. Most travellers arrive safely where they're going. Why else would so many of us be on the roads? You think about this as the innkeeper's wife brings bowls of stew to your table. It makes sense. If travel were truly as dangerous as some stories suggest, commerce would collapse. Pilgrims wouldn't set out by the thousands. The roads would be empty instead of filled with people like yourselves. So, we probably won't be murdered in our sleep tonight? Edwin asks with a half smile. Thomas laughs. Not unless you snore too loudly. After eating, you step outside to stretch your legs and explore the tiny village. The sun is setting, painting the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. You find yourself standing by the village's small wooden church, watching as the last light catches on its weathered cross. A sound of footsteps makes you turn. An old man with a staff is making his way toward the church, moving slowly but deliberately. "Good evening," you greet him. He peers at you, eyes narrowing. "You're one of the travellers. Going where?" "Jerusalem," you answer, still feeling a little strange saying it out loud. His eyes widen. "Jerusalem. Now there's ambition. I went to Canterbury once, 30 years ago, still the furthest I've ever been from home." "Was it worth it?" you ask, genuinely curious. "Oh yes." His face softens with memory. The cathedral, like nothing you've ever seen, taller than the tallest tree, stone that seems to float in air, windows of coloured glass that paint the sunlight itself. He shakes his head in wonder. "Changed how I see the world." "That's what I'm hoping for," you admit, "to see things I can't even imagine." He nods, understanding. "The road teaches you more than any book. Watch for markers, though. Easy to get lost." "Markers?" "Stone crosses, mainly, at important junctions. Some show distances to the next town. Not many, mind you, and far between, but they help." He points with his staff. "From here to London, you'll want to follow the river south until you reach the King's Highway. Look for the stone cross with 3 notches. That's your turning." You thank him for the advice, realizing this is exactly how medieval navigation worked. Bits of knowledge passed from traveller to traveller, local landmarks, remembered directions. "One more thing," the old man adds as he turns to enter the church. "When you reach the river crossing tomorrow, don't take the ford if the water's high. Wait for the ferry. Costs a penny, but better than drowning." Back at the inn, the main room is now crowded and noisy. A man with a small harp is playing in the corner, and several locals have started dancing. The atmosphere is festive. Apparently, travellers are a welcome diversion in this small village. "Look at that." Edwin nudges you, nodding toward a group near the fire. Several men are hunched over what appears to be a crude map drawn in the rushes on the floor. You move closer, curious. One man, clearly a merchant by his better clothing, is tracing a route with his finger. "Then south through the forest, but mind the marshes here," he's saying. "Lost a whole cart there last spring. Better to go around, even though it adds a day." "Wouldn't the old Roman road be faster?" another asks. The merchant shakes his head. "Collapsed bridge. Unless you fancy a swim with all your goods." You listen, fascinated as they discuss various routes, obstacles, places to avoid, good inns to seek out. This is valuable information for any traveller, the kind not found in any book but passed from person to person. When there's a pause in their conversation, you clear your throat. "Pardon me. We're heading to London, then Dover. Any advice?" The merchant looks up, sizing you up. "Pilgrims, eh? Crossing at Dover?" When you nod, he continues, "Road to London's decent enough this time of year, though there's tolls at 3 bridges. From London to Dover, follow the Pilgrim's Way, well-travelled route. Plenty of stopping places." "Tolls?" Edwin asks nervously. "How much?" "Depends who's collecting. the merchant says with a wry smile. Official rates are halfpenny per person, but some bridge keepers have creative mathematics. Another traveller in the group, a lean man with a weathered face, leans forward. If you're short on coins, there's ways around. Ford at Milner's Bend is passable in fair weather, saves you the bridge toll at West Cross. Or you could do what my old father taught me, adds another with a conspiratorial wink. Approach at dusk when the keeper's preparing his supper. Offer to share news from the road for free passage. Works half the time. You're absorbing this wealth of practical knowledge when Thomas appears at your elbow. Gathering travel tips? He asks, amused. Good, you'll need them when we part ways. Your heart sinks a little at the reminder that your merchant guides won't be with you the whole journey. You're not going to London? Only as far as Guildford, Thomas explains. Our route takes us west from there. Great. Just when you were getting comfortable with the idea of following experienced travellers, you'll be on your own again. Well, you and Edwin, which isn't much better considering neither of you has ever navigated further than the local market town. As the evening wears on, more travellers arrive at the inn, seeking shelter for the night. By the time you're ready for sleep, the main room is crowded with bodies. Merchants, pilgrims, a monk travelling to his new monastery, even a messenger carrying letters from some lord to another. The sleeping arrangements prove interesting. The bed you paid for is already occupied by 2 other travellers, and it seems you're expected to squeeze in alongside them. This wasn't quite what you envisioned when you spent your silver penny. Just like cattle in a pen, Edwin mutters as you arrange yourselves in the bed, everyone fully clothed except for Boots, lying side by side like sardines. Count yourself lucky, Thomas says from the next bed over. In bigger inns, they'd pack 6 or 8 to a bed, and in some places, you sleep in shifts. One group uses the beds while the other group works or travels, then you switch. You lie awake for a while, listening to the breathing and occasional snores of the strangers sharing your bed. It's strange being this close to people you met just hours ago, but this is how travel worked in medieval times. Privacy was a luxury few could afford, especially on the road. Eventually, exhaustion claims you, and you drift into sleep, dreaming of endless roads stretching toward distant horizons. In your dreams, you're walking on a perfect Roman road that never ends, never crumbles, carrying you smooth and straight all the way to Jerusalem. Morning comes with the sound of roosters and the smell of baking bread. Your body aches even more than yesterday, but there's a different quality to it now, the beginning of endurance rather than just pain. Outside, a light rain is falling, not the downpour of your first day, but a steady drizzle that promises to make the roads slick and travel uncomfortable. Weather's turning, Thomas observes over breakfast. Spring storms coming in. Should we wait it out? Edwin asks hopefully. Thomas shakes his head. Could rain for days. Can't stop for every shower or you'll never reach Jerusalem. And so, with rain soaking into your cloaks and squelching beneath your boots, you set out once more. The road ahead winds through rolling hills, disappearing into mist and rain. Somewhere beyond lies London, then the sea, then lands you've only heard of in stories. One step at a time, you remind yourself. That's how all journeys work. The rain continues for 3 days straight, not the violent downpours that turn roads into rivers, but the persistent, soul-sucking drizzle that soaks through everything eventually. Your cloak, supposedly waterproof, gave up sometime during the first afternoon. Your boots squelch with every step. Even your skin feels damp, like you've been swimming in your clothes. I've forgotten what it feels like to be dry, Edwin mutters as you trudge along a muddy path that might generously be called a road. His face is red with cold, water dripping steadily from his nose. Thomas and his family parted ways with you yesterday at a crossroads, heading west while you continued south toward London. The merchant's final gift was a rough set of directions. Follow this road until the Three Oaks, then east until you reach the river, then south again along its banks until you see the spires of the town. It all sounded simple enough when he said it. Reality has proven more complicated. Are those the Three Oaks he mentioned? Edwin points to a cluster of trees ahead, barely visible through the rain. That's 5 trees, you count, and they're elms. Edwin sighs. How can you tell from here? Grew up cutting wood with my father, you shrug. You learn the difference? The truth is, you're not entirely sure where you are. The landmarks Thomas described haven't appeared in quite the order he suggested. Either he misremembered or you took a wrong turn somewhere. But that's part of medieval travel, uncertain, approximate, requiring constant adaptation. Without precise maps or signposts, navigation was as much art as science. As the weak sun struggles to penetrate the clouds, you establish a routine that will become familiar in the days ahead. Wake at first light, eat whatever cold food you have left from the previous night. Walk until midday, when you stop briefly to rest your feet and have a drink of water. Walk again until dusk. Find shelter, an inn if you're lucky, a barn or church porch if you're not. Sleep, repeat. It's a simple rhythm, ancient as humanity itself. Wake, walk, rest, walk, sleep. The world shrinks to the next step, the next meal, the next place to lay your head. Morning brings a welcome break in the weather. For the first time in days, you wake to actual sunshine streaming through the cracks of the barn where you spent the night. The farmer who owned it had allowed you to sleep there for a few hours of help with his lambing the evening before, a common arrangement for travellers short on coin. Thank God, Edwin says, stretching as he steps outside. I was starting to grow moss. You laugh, feeling your spirits lift with the sunshine. Let's dry out while we can. No telling how long this will last. You spread your sodden cloaks on a fence to catch the morning sun, then sit on a fallen log to eat the last of your bread. It's gone hard and slightly mouldy at the edges, but food is food. We need supplies, Edwin observes, looking mournfully at his empty scrip. Next village must have a market, or at least someone selling food. And how do we pay for it, you ask? I've got 2 silver pennies left. That's got to last us to Dover at least. Edwin produces a small wooden carving from his pack, a little figure of St. Christopher, patron saint of travellers. I made 3 of these before we left. Thought they might be worth something to the right buyer. You raise your eyebrows, impressed. Didn't know you had a talent for carving. There's a lot you don't know about me, he says with a wink. 20 years in the same village and still mysteries to uncover. You're considering this when voices drift toward you from the road, people singing. A moment later, a group of about 15 travellers rounds the bend. They're dressed in simple clothes but wearing pilgrim badges on their hats and cloaks, shells for those who've been to Santiago, palm fronds for Jerusalem, tiny vials said to contain holy water from various shrines. Their leader, a tall man with a salt and pepper beard, raises his staff in greeting. Hail, fellow travellers, where are you bound? Jerusalem, you answer, still feeling a flutter of disbelief when you say it out loud. A ripple of appreciation runs through the group. The Holy Land, a noble destination, the leader says. We're just returning from Canterbury ourselves, Thomas Becket's shrine, most of us anyway. Matilda there's been to Rome. He nods toward an older woman who smiles and touches a badge shaped like crossed keys pinned to her cloak. Jerusalem pilgrims, you say. A burly man steps forward, studying you with interest. Now there's a journey. Been there myself 3 years ago. Changed my life. It did. He thumps his chest. Name's Walter, blacksmith from Norwich. You've actually been to Jerusalem? Edwin asks, awe in his voice. What's it like? Hot, Walter laughs. Dusty, beautiful and terrible all at once. Holy ground for certain, but getting there. He shakes his head. Not for the faint-hearted. Any advice? You ask eagerly. Join a larger group when you can, like ours. Walter gestures to his companions. Safety in numbers. Learn a few words of different languages. French at least, some Italian if you can, and pack light. Anything you think you need, halve it, then halve it again. You look at your already meagre possessions, wondering what else you could possibly do without. Oh, Walter adds, rummaging in his scrip. One more thing. Take these. He hands you each a small tin badge showing a crude figure of a man with a staff. St. James, protector of pilgrims, got them in Santiago years ago. Might bring you luck. We can't take these, you protest, touched but uncomfortable accepting something valuable from a stranger. Course you can, Walter insists. That's how it works. Someone helped me when I started out. Now I help you. When you meet new pilgrims on your way home from Jerusalem, you'll do the same. You accept the badge, pinning it to your cloak where it catches the sun. A talisman, yes, but also something more practical. A sign to others that you're genuine pilgrims, not just wanderers or thieves. The Canterbury group stays with you through the morning, walking at a comfortable pace while sharing stories of their journey. You learn more in those few hours about practical travel than in all the days since leaving home. Never pay the first price at an inn, advises Matilda, the Rome pilgrim. Always ask what's included. Bed, food, fodder for animals if you have them. Some innkeepers will charge extra for every little thing if you don't ask first. And check your bed before you pay, adds a younger woman walking beside her. I handed over good money in Dover only to find the mattress crawling with fleas. Don't drink water from standing pools, cautions another. Running water's safer, or better yet, small beer if you can get it. If you're lost, ask a shepherd, not a merchant, says Walter. Shepherds know every inch of local land and have no reason to send you the wrong way. It's a master class in medieval travel, passed down through experience rather than books. By midday, your scrip is full of not just practical advice, but also food, bread, hard cheese, dried apples, shared freely by your new companions. Why are you all so kind to strangers? Edwin asks, as you stop to rest by a small stream. Strangers? Walter looks genuinely confused. You're not strangers. You're pilgrims, same as us. That makes you family. After eating, your groups prepare to part ways. The Canterbury pilgrims heading north toward their homes, you continuing south. How far to London, do you think? You ask Walter before saying goodbye. He considers this, looking at the position of the sun. At your pace, 3 days, maybe 4, follow this road until you reach the river, then keep the water on your right until you see the city walls. He grins. Can't miss it. Just follow your nose when you get close. Biggest, smelliest place in England. With handshakes and blessings, you part from the Canterbury group, continuing on with lighter hearts and fuller packs. Their kindness has restored your faith in this journey, reminding you that the road connects people as much as places. The afternoon brings you to a village larger than any you've seen yet, a proper market town with a stone church, a square lined with shops, and even a small castle on the hill overlooking the settlement. For market day, Edwin observes, nodding toward the bustling square where stalls sell everything from vegetables to leather goods. Shall we try your carving? You wander through the market, taking in the sights and sounds. A juggler performs for a small crowd, his clever hands keeping 5 balls in the air at once. A woman sells pies from a tray, their smell making your mouth water despite your recent meal. 2 men argue loudly over the price of a sheep, their faces red with the effort. Edwin approaches a stall selling religious items, rosaries, small icons, prayer books for those who can read. The old woman minding it eyes his carving with professional interest. "St. Christopher?" she asks, taking it from him to examine the workmanship. "Yes, good lady, for travellers," Edwin explains. She turns it over in her gnarled hands. "Decent work, not fine enough for a noble, but solid. I'll give you 3 halfpennies for it." Edwin glances at you. It's not much, but it would buy food for a couple of days. You give a slight nod. "Done," he says. While Edwin completes his transaction, you notice a board posted near the church gate. Stepping closer, you see it's covered with scraps of parchment. Notices, advertisements, messages. Most you can't read. Literacy isn't common among peasants like yourself, but some have crude pictures alongside the text. One catches your eye, a drawing of a road with what appears to be a bridge crossed out, then an alternate route marked around it. Even without reading the words, the meaning is clear. A bridge is down somewhere ahead, and travellers are advised to take a different path. A monk stands nearby, watching you with amusement. "Can you read it?" he asks. You shake your head, embarrassed. "No, Father, but the picture seems clear enough." It warns that the bridge at Thornton Ford collapsed last week, he explains. Travellers to London should take the Western Road through Harlow instead. He studies your pilgrim badge. "Jerusalem?" "Yes, Father, by way of London and Dover." He nods thoughtfully. "A sacred undertaking. May I offer a blessing for your journey?" You bow your head, accepting his quick prayer and the sign of the cross he makes over you. Whether you believe in its power or not, a priest's blessing never hurts on the road. By late afternoon, you've left the market town behind, following the Western Road as advised. Your pack is heavier now, with the food Edwin purchased. Oatcakes, dried fish, even a small flask of honey to make stale bread more palatable. You've learned quickly that on the road, food is never something to take for granted. "How far do you think we've walked today?" Edwin asks as the sun begins to sink toward the horizon. You consider this, trying to judge distance. 10 miles? 12? "Feels like 50, he groans, rubbing his calf. In truth, 10 to 15 miles was a typical day's journey for medieval travellers on foot. Mounted messengers or nobles with fresh horses might make 30 or more, but for ordinary people walking from sunrise to sunset, 15 miles was considered good progress. As twilight approaches, you begin looking for somewhere to spend the night. The road has entered a wooded area with no villages in sight. Sleeping in the open isn't ideal. Spring nights are cold, and though Walter assured you English roads were relatively safe, only a fool sleeps unprotected by walls if they can help it. Just when you're beginning to worry, the trees thin and you spot smoke rising from chimneys ahead. Not a proper village, but a small cluster of houses around what appears to be a mill by the river. "Think they'll have an inn?" Edwin asks hopefully. "Doubtful. Too small, but maybe someone will take us in for the night." The miller himself answers your knock, a burly man covered in flour dust. His eyes narrow suspiciously at first, then relax when he spots your pilgrim badges. "Jerusalem, eh?" he says when you explain your journey. "Ambitious. Can't offer proper beds, but the storeroom's dry and there's straw to sleep on if you don't mind sharing with the cat." "We'd be most grateful," you say sincerely. A dry place to sleep is luxury enough after days on the road. The miller's wife, a kind-faced woman with strong arms, insists on feeding you as well. A simple but hearty pottage of beans and barley, with even a small piece of salt pork for flavour. It's the best meal you've had since leaving home. "Do many travellers pass this way?" you ask as you eat. "Oh, all sorts," the miller nods. "Merchants mostly, taking grain to London. Pilgrims like yourselves in season. King's messengers when there's news to be carried. Had a jongleur through last month. Sang for his supper, he did. Fine voice. A jongleur? Here? Edwin sounds impressed. These travelling entertainers usually performed for nobles, not at humble mills. Said he was practicing new songs on the common folk before trying them at court, the miller's wife explains. Stayed 3 days, even taught our boy to juggle. It strikes you how connected even this small place is to the wider world through the people who pass on the road. Ideas, news, songs, stories, all travelling with the bodies that carry them, spreading like seeds on the wind. Later, settled in the storeroom on surprisingly comfortable straw, Edwin voices the same thought. Strange to think of all the feet that have walked these same roads before us, he muses. Thousands upon thousands, generation after generation. Romans, Saxons, Normans, peasants, kings, saints and sinners. Makes you feel small, doesn't it? You reply, staring up at the rafters where moonlight filters through the cracks. Just 2 more travellers in an endless line. Small, yes, but part of something big too. He yawns. Wonder how many of them were also looking for God in Jerusalem. Or just looking for something different than the life they knew, you add softly. Edwin doesn't respond. His breathing has deepened into sleep, the day's walking having claimed him at last. You lie awake a while longer, listening to the unfamiliar sounds, the creak of the mill wheel, the rustle of mice in the grain sacks, the soft purring of the promised cat who has indeed joined you, curled in a warm ball between your shoulders. Tomorrow will bring more walking, more strangers, more discoveries. The routine is already becoming familiar. Wake, walk, eat, walk, sleep. Yet within that simple pattern, each day brings something new. A different landscape, a different face, a different conversation. Perhaps that's the real gift of the road, you think as sleep finally claims you. Not just the destination, but the endless variation within the journey itself. Morning comes with the crowing of the miller's roosters and the smell of fresh bread. You wake stiff but rested, your body slowly adapting to this new life of constant movement. The cat is gone, but has left a dead mouse by your pack, a gift or a payment for sharing her space. You're not sure which. The miller's wife insists on feeding you again before you leave. Hot porridge sweetened with a precious spoonful of honey. As you eat, she packs extra bread for your journey, waving away your offers to pay. My son's on pilgrimage to Canterbury, she explains. I'd hope someone would feed him when he's hungry. This is how the road works in medieval times, a web of reciprocity, of favour and obligation, of kindness repaid to strangers because your loved ones are strangers to someone else. It's a practical system in a world without hotels on every corner or restaurants at every crossroads. Back on the road, the day unfolds much like the ones before it. The weather holds fair, which you count as a blessing. You pass fields where peasants, much like yourself, work the spring soil, preparing for planting. They straighten to watch you pass, some raising hands in greeting when they spot your pilgrim badges. Near midday, you encounter another type of traveller, a royal messenger on horseback, his blue and gold livery marking him as the king's man. He barely slows as he gallops past, splashing you both with mud from the road. Important news, apparently, Edwin mutters, wiping mud from his face. Or just a man who thinks his horse makes him better than those on foot, you reply, more amused than offended. Such is the hierarchy of the road. Those on horseback above those on foot, the rich above the poor, official business above personal journeys. Yet even the king's messenger is subject to the same fundamental rules as you. He must find his way using the same landmarks, cross the same rivers, avoid the same obstacles. His horse gives him speed, but doesn't change the essential nature of travel. By late afternoon, you've settled into a comfortable walking rhythm, your body's finding the pace they can maintain hour after hour. It's not fast, probably no more than 2 miles an hour over varied terrain, but it's sustainable. At this rate, London seems achievable in the days Walter predicted. Edwin has taken to singing to pass the time, old ballads and work songs from the village. You join in when you know the words, your voices carrying across the fields and occasionally drawing curious looks from those you pass. It's during one such song that you crest a hill and suddenly stop mid-verse, the view ahead taking your breath away. There in the distance, where the road meets the horizon, you can just make out a smudge of grey against the sky, towers and walls far larger than any you've seen before. "Is that—" Edwin asks, voice hushed. "London," you confirm, though you've never seen it yourself. Nothing else could be so vast. It's still days away at your pace, but seeing it there on the horizon makes it real in a way it hasn't been before. Beyond it lies the sea, and beyond that the continent, the Mediterranean, the Holy Land. The world stretches out before you, step by step, mile by mile. "We're really doing this," Edwin says, a note of wonder in his voice. "We're actually going to Jerusalem." You nod, feeling the same mixture of terror and exhilaration you felt leaving your village, but magnified now by the tangible evidence of your progress. You've already come further than most people from your village ever will in their lives. One step at a time. You remind him, echoing Thomas's words from what seems like ages ago. That's how all journeys work. And with London shimmering like a promise on the horizon, you continue walking, 2 more travellers on an ancient road. It takes you 3 more days to reach London, 3 days of steady walking, each mile bringing the city closer, its towers and spires slowly resolving from smudgy outlines to distinct shapes against the sky. The road grows busier as you approach, joining with other paths like streams flowing into a river, until you're part of a constant flow of humanity moving toward the great city. "My feet have forgotten what it feels like not to hurt," Edwin complains as you stop to rest on the afternoon of the 3rd day. You've reached a small rise that offers a clear view of London ahead, now close enough that you can make out the massive walls, the cluster of buildings within, and the great river winding through it all. "Worth it for that view," you say, though your own feet are screaming. You've walked farther in the past week than in any month of your life before. The road below you teems with travellers of all sorts, merchants with loaded carts, nobles on horseback surrounded by servants, peasants driving livestock to market, pilgrims like yourselves, friars with their distinctive robes, messengers rushing importantly past slower travellers. "Where will we sleep tonight?" Edwin asks, eyeing the city with a mixture of awe and apprehension. "Can't just knock on a random door in a place that size." It's a good question. In small villages and towns, finding shelter has been relatively straightforward. An inn, if you can afford it, a barn or church porch if you can't. But London is different, vast, crowded, and anonymous in a way rural communities aren't. "Walter mentioned a pilgrim hostel near the East Gate, you recall. Said it was cheap and reasonably clean." "Define reasonably," Edwin mutters. A voice from behind makes you both turn. "If you're looking for lodging in London, I might help." The speaker is a man about your age, dressed in the simple robes of a monk, though without the tonsured head you'd expect. He carries a walking staff similar to your own, and his boots show the dust of long travel. "Brother?" you begin, not sure if he's actually a monk. "Just Martin," he smiles. "Not a full brother yet. Novice on my way to Canterbury after some business in London." He nods toward the city. "I stay at St. Bartholomew's when I'm there. They take in pilgrims for a small donation. Much better than most inns, and safer too." We'd be grateful for directions, you say. Martin falls into step beside you as you continue down the road. He's good company, talkative without being overwhelming, and full of practical knowledge about London. "Oh, first time in the city?" he asks, though he surely knows the answer from your wide-eyed expressions. "First time more than 10 miles from home," Edwin admits. Martin whistles. "Ambitious, starting with Jerusalem. Most begin with something easier, Canterbury perhaps, or Walsingham." "Wasn't exactly planned," you explain. "Made a vow during the plague. If our village was spared, I'd make the pilgrimage." You shrug. "Village survived. Here we are." "Ah," Martin nods understanding. "Vows must be kept, but you've chosen a hard road for beginners." "We're learning as we go," Edwin says. "What's this St. Bartholomew's like?" "It's a hospital, not just for the sick, but for travellers too. Clean straw mattresses, simple food, morning and evening prayers. They ask for whatever donation you can afford, but won't turn away those who have nothing." "Sounds perfect," you say, relieved. "Your remaining coins won't last long in an expensive city." As you walk, Martin points out landmarks visible from the road, the tower rising dark and imposing by the river, the spires of St. Paul's, the bridge crowded with buildings that somehow manage to stand despite looking ready to topple into the water. "How do you find your way around in there?" Edwin asks, clearly intimidated by the city's scale. "Same as on the open road," Martin replies. "Landmarks. The main streets follow old Roman roads, straight when everything else twists and turns. Churches make good reference points. Everyone knows where they are, and if you're truly lost, follow the river. It'll orient you eventually." By the time you reach the city gates, the sun is getting low. Martin leads you confidently through the press of people entering the city before the gates close for the night. You stay close behind him, overwhelmed by the noise, the smells, the sheer number of people packed into the streets. "Keep your hands on your packs," Martin advises without turning around. Cut purses love distracted travellers. You clutch your meagre possessions tighter, suddenly aware of how vulnerable you are in this strange environment. The streets narrow as you enter the city proper, buildings leaning toward each other overhead until they almost touch, blocking much of the fading light. The road beneath your feet is no longer dirt, but worn cobblestones slick with substances you'd rather not identify. The smell hits you like a physical force. Human waste, rotting food, tanning leather, smoke, sweat, animals, all concentrated by the close quarters. Edwin gags slightly beside you. You get used to it, Martin assures him, looking amused. Breathe through your mouth until then. After several twisting turns that leave you completely disoriented, Martin stops before a large stone building with an arched entrance. A small cross above the door identifies it as a religious establishment. "St. Bartholomew's," he announces. "You're home for tonight, God willing." Inside, you're greeted by a brother in a simple black habit who looks you over with practiced efficiency. "Pilgrims?" he asks, noting your badges. "To Jerusalem," Martin answers for you. "They'll need lodging for the night, perhaps longer?" The brother nods. "We have space. 2 silver pennies each would be the usual donation, but give what you can." He eyes your trail-worn appearance with sympathy. "If you're willing to help serve the evening meal, we could reduce that." "We'd be happy to help," you say quickly, thinking of your dwindling funds. "Excellent. Brother Thomas will show you where to put your things." He indicates another monk waiting nearby. Vespers in 1 hour, then the evening meal. Martin bids you farewell, promising to look for you in the morning before he continues his journey. You follow Brother Thomas through stone corridors that feel blessedly cool after days on the hot road. The pilgrim dormitory is a long room with straw mattresses laid out in neat rows on the floor. Simple woolen blankets are folded at the foot of each. The room is mostly empty now, with just a few other travellers sorting through their packs or resting. Not exactly private accommodations, Edwin murmurs as Brother Thomas leaves you to settle in. Better than some places we've stayed, you point out. Remember that inn where we shared a bed with those 3 merchants? At least here we each get our own mattress. This is luxury by medieval travelling standards. Clean straw, a roof that doesn't leak, walls to keep out the wind, and relative safety from thieves. For 2 silver pennies, or less with your work arrangement, it's a bargain in an expensive city. After stowing your packs, you help in the kitchen as promised, chopping vegetables for a simple pottage and carrying water from the well in the courtyard. The work is familiar and almost comforting after days of new experiences. The evening meal is served in a large refectory. Travellers sit at long tables alongside the brothers of the hospital, and you realise with surprise patients well enough to leave their beds. It's a diverse gathering. Pilgrims from across England and beyond, merchants resting between journeys, poor scholars, even a knight and his squire who've donated more substantially for a private room elsewhere in the complex. "Where are you coming from?" asks the man beside you, spooning up pottage. His accent marks him as northern, perhaps from York. "Village near Winchester," you answer. "You?" "Durham. Been on the road 3 weeks." He glances at your pilgrim badge. "Jerusalem, eh? Bold choice." "I'm just headed to Canterbury, then home." Conversation flows easily around the table, travellers exchanging stories and advice. You learn more about the road ahead in that one meal than you could have from any single source. Which ports have the most reliable ships to France? Which routes across the continent are safest? What documents you might need at certain borders? How to say basic phrases in languages you've never heard. It strikes you that this is how knowledge travels in the medieval world, not primarily through books or maps, but through people talking to people, experience shared directly from one traveller to the next. After the meal, many travellers gather in a small courtyard where benches offer a place to sit and digest. The knight you noticed earlier is holding court, describing his time in the Holy Land with grand gestures. And the heat, like nothing you've felt in England. It draws the very life from you if you're not careful. I lost 2 good men simply to the sun before we even saw battle. His audience listens raptly, pilgrims especially hanging on every detail about their destination. Is Jerusalem itself worth the journey? Someone asks. The knight's face softens. 1,000 times yes. Standing where Christ stood, there are no words. He shakes his head. But the journey tests you, as it should. Paradise isn't meant to come easy. You listen until weariness pulls at your eyelids, then make your way back to the dormitory. By now, most mattresses are occupied, a few by individual travellers like yourselves, others by entire families huddled together under shared blankets. The room is filled with the sounds of breathing, occasional snores and whispered conversations. As you lie down on your mattress, the reality of the journey ahead settles over you like a weight. London had seemed so distant when you left home, an almost mythical destination. Now you're here, and it's just one early step in a much longer journey. Beyond lies the sea, then France, the Alps, Italy, the Mediterranean, lands you've only heard named in church or tavern tales. "You awake?" Edwin whispers from the mattress beside yours. "Unfortunately," you reply. Do you think we'll make it all the way to Jerusalem? You consider this? Honestly, I don't know, but we've made it this far when neither of us had ever left the Shire before. That counts for something. He's quiet for a moment. I had no idea the world was so big, or that there were so many different kinds of people in it. We've barely scratched the surface, you say, thinking of the foreigners you've glimpsed in London's streets, merchants from Italy with their fine clothes, dark-skinned Moors from Spain or beyond, even a man who someone whispered was from as far as Cathay. Makes our village seem very small, Edwin muses. It is very small, you point out. True, he shifts on his mattress, but it's still home. You fall asleep to the sounds of strangers breathing, dreaming of distant shores. Morning comes with the ringing of bells calling the brothers to prayer. The dormitory stirs to life, travellers gathering their belongings and preparing for another day on the road or in the city. Over a breakfast of bread and thin ale, Martin finds you as promised. How did you sleep? He asks, breaking his bread into careful pieces. Better than on the road, you admit, though the man next to me snored like an angry bull. Martin laughs. That's why I always carry these. He produces small plugs of wax from his scrip. Block out most noises when you need to sleep. Learned that trick my first month as a novice. Monastery dormitories are no quieter. Wish I'd known that earlier, Edwin mutters. Planning to stay another night? Martin asks. You look at Edwin, considering. Probably. Need to find out about ships to France, maybe get some supplies. Good thinking, Martin nods. Don't rush off without proper information. Too many pilgrims hurry from one place to the next without taking time to prepare. After breakfast, you help clean the refectory as payment for your reduced lodging fee, then set out to explore London. Martin provides basic directions before leaving for Canterbury. How to find your way back to St. Bartholomew's, which areas to avoid, where to find ships bound for France. The city in daylight is no less overwhelming, but somehow less threatening than it seemed in the fading light of the previous evening. Streets teem with people going about their business. Vendors call their wares from stalls and shops. Apprentices rush on errands. Dogs and chickens weave between legs. Carts struggle to navigate narrow passages never designed for wheeled traffic. Where to first? Edwin asks, looking around in bewilderment. The river, you decide, remembering Martin's advice about using it to orient yourself. Then the docks to ask about ships. Finding the Thames isn't difficult. You simply follow the general slope of the land downward until the great river appears, wide and brown, crowded with boats of all sizes. The docks are a chaotic scene of loading and unloading, sailors shouting in multiple languages, merchants arguing over prices, customs officials checking cargoes. You approach a group of sailors who look English, judging by their speech. "Excuse me," you begin, feeling out of place. "We're looking for passage to France, pilgrims to Jerusalem." One sailor, older than the rest with a beard going grey, looks you over. "Calais is your best bet then. Ships leave daily, weather permitting." He points down the dock. "Try Jacob over there with the red cap. Fair prices, decent vessel. Tell him what sent you." Jacob of the red cap turns out to be a harried-looking man checking cargo against a list someone is reading to him, presumably because he himself can't read. He barely glances at you when you approach. "Pilgrims, 2 silver marks each. Bring your own food for 3 days. No refunds if you spew your guts the whole way. We leave with the tide 2 days from now." The price makes your heart sink. 2 marks is far more than you have. Is there a cheaper option? You ask. Perhaps working for passage? Jacob snorts. You farmers? What do you know of ships? When you don't deny it, he shakes his head. Thought so. I need sailors, not seasick pilgrims cluttering my deck. Try the pilgrim ships further down. They sometimes take workers. The pilgrim ships turn out to be vessels specifically catering to those travelling to religious sites, particularly during peak pilgrimage seasons. They're more expensive than regular merchant ships, but offer certain amenities, dedicated space for pilgrims, some religious services on board, occasionally even basic medical care. After speaking with 3 different captains, you finally find one willing to take you for a combination of coins and labour, helping load cargo before departure and assisting the cook during the crossing. It will still cost most of your remaining money, but it's doable. We leave in 3 days, the captain tells you. Be here before dawn, or we sail without you. 3 days. Time to rest, prepare, and gather whatever supplies you can afford for the next leg of your journey. You head back towards St. Bartholomew's, planning to secure lodging for the additional nights. I'm starting to understand why pilgrimages test faith, Edwin remarks as you navigate the crowded streets. It's not just the walking or the danger, it's figuring out where to sleep, how to eat, how to pay for everything. The practical side of devotion, you agree. Back at St. Bartholomew's, you arrange to stay the additional nights, again offering labour in exchange for reduced fees. The brother in charge assigns you to the infirmary, where you'll help tend to the sick each morning before being free to prepare for your departure. That evening, the dormitory fills with new faces. A group of pilgrims just arrived from the north, bound for Canterbury. They're loud and excited, many clearly on their first journey beyond their home villages, just as you were a week ago. Were we that noisy? Edwin whispers as you try to sleep through their animated conversations. Probably, you admit, though I don't remember discussing the shape of the serving girl's ankles quite so enthusiastically. Edwin chuckles. Give them time. A few more days on the road and they'll be too tired to notice much beyond their own blisters. You've changed, you realise. Just a short time travelling has shifted something fundamental in how you see the world and your place in it. The road does that to people. Everyone starts somewhere, wide-eyed and overwhelmed like those new pilgrims or like you were leaving your village. But the journey itself transforms you step by step, night by night, one bed to the next. As you drift towards sleep, you find yourself actually looking forward to the next stage, crossing the sea, setting foot on foreign soil for the first time, continuing this journey that's already taken you farther than you ever imagined going. The world beyond your village is vast and often bewildering, but you're learning to navigate it, one road, one night's shelter at a time. Your 3 days in London pass in a blur of new experiences. Each morning you work in the hospital's infirmary, changing bandages, feeding those too weak to feed themselves, and emptying chamber pots. Humble work, but it pays for your bed and bread. Each afternoon you venture into the city, preparing for the next leg of your journey. On your second day, Edwin nudges you awake before dawn. Come on, he whispers. Today's market day at Smithfield. Everyone says we have to see it. You groan, body still aching from yesterday's work. The ship doesn't leave until tomorrow. Can't we rest? Rest? In London? Edwin looks at you like you've suggested flying to the moon. We might never come back here. Don't you want to see everything we can? He's right, of course. You drag yourself up, splash cold water on your face from the basin, and follow him into the pre-dawn darkness. The streets are already coming alive as you make your way towards Smithfield. Bakers open their shops, the smell of fresh bread making your stomach growl. Apprentices sweep doorsteps, carts rumble toward the market, loaded with goods from the surrounding countryside. Did you ever imagine a place could be so big? Edwin asks, still awestruck by London after 3 days. You could fit our entire village in just a few streets here. And yet people still know each other, you observe, nodding toward a group of women greeting each other familiarly beside a well, just in smaller circles, I suppose. By the time you reach Smithfield, the sun is just breaking over the city walls, illuminating a scene of organised chaos that takes your breath away. The market ground stretches farther than you can see, already crowded with hundreds of people and animals. Stalls and tents create a maze of pathways, each section seemingly dedicated to different goods. Holy Mother of God, Edwin breathes. It's like the whole world is here. A man passing by overhears and laughs. First time at Smithfield? This is nothing. Come back for the Bartholomew Fair in August. Now that's a sight. You've been to village markets and even the occasional fair when travelling merchants passed through your region. But this is commerce on a scale you never imagined. Not just local produce and crafts, but goods from across England and beyond. Where do we even start, you wonder aloud? Well, food, Edwin decides practically. We need supplies for the ship. The captain had been clear. Bring your own provisions for the crossing. The ship would provide water, but anything else was your responsibility. With your limited funds, you need to be strategic. You wander into the food section of the market, overwhelmed by the variety. Cheese sellers offer samples of sharp, aged cheddar, so different from the mild cheese made in your village. Bakers display loaves in shapes you've never seen. Butchers hawk meat pies still warm from the oven. We need things that will keep, you remind Edwin, who's eyeing a steaming pie with naked longing. Ship won't have cooking fires for passengers. Spoil sport, he mutters, but nods agreement. You eventually settle on hard bread, a small wheel of waxed cheese, dried apples, and, after some deliberation, a small sack of almonds, which the seller assures you will provide energy and keep well. These are from Spain, the almond seller tells you, noting your pilgrim badges. You'll see trees full of them when you travel south. It's strange to hold something in your hand that's travelled so far, a small taste of the distant lands you'll soon see yourselves. As you move through the market, the crowd thickens. You pass a section where livestock is being traded, sheep, pigs, chickens, even horses in a separate area where well-dressed men inspect teeth and hooves with critical eyes. Look at those horses, Edwin says wistfully. Imagine making this journey on horseback instead of on foot. Imagine feeding and stabling a horse with what's left of our money. You counter. He sighs. A man can dream. Beyond the livestock, you discover another world entirely. The cloth merchants. Bolts of fabric in colours you never knew existed are displayed in open-fronted stalls. Fine wool from the north, linen from Ireland, and most exotic of all, silk from the Far East, shimmering in the morning light. A woman in a rich merchant's wife's attire runs her fingers over a length of blue silk, her maid standing respectfully behind. How much from Damascus did you say came in on the last ship? She asks the seller. 6 bolts only, madam. The Sultan's new taxes have reduced the trade. This piece you're touching is the finest. See how it catches the light. You and Edwin stand transfixed, watching this exchange. The silk probably costs more than either of you would earn in a year of farming. Yet here it is, casually displayed at a London market, brought by merchants who routinely travel the very routes you're about to attempt, for the first time. Do you think we'll see Damascus? Edwin asks quietly. Maybe, you say. If we make it that far. A voice behind you makes you both turn. Pilgrims to Jerusalem, yes, you'll pass through Damascus if you take the southern route. The speaker is a tall man with a deeply tanned face and an accent you can't place. His clothes are foreign in cut but high quality, and a curved knife hangs at his belt. "You've been there?" Edwin asks eagerly. The man smiles. "Many times. I trade spices from the East. Just returned to London last month." He studies your simple clothing and meagre packs. "Travelling light, I see. Wise for the journey ahead." "More like travelling poor," you admit. He chuckles. "Money smooths the road but doesn't guarantee arrival. I've seen rich men die on the pilgrim routes while poor ones reached Jerusalem." He reaches into a pouch at his belt and pulls out something small. "Here, for your journey." He presses a small cloth bag into your hand. The scent that wafts from it is sharp and unfamiliar. "What is it?" you ask, sniffing curiously. "Cloves keep insects from your food and clothes. Also good for tooth pain." He taps his jaw. "Chew one if your teeth trouble you on the road." You're touched by this unexpected gift from a stranger. "Thank you, but we can't pay." He waves away your concern. "No payment, just a kindness for the road." His eyes crinkle. "Perhaps you'll do the same for another traveller someday." Before you can thank him properly, he melts back into the crowd. Edwin stares after him. "Did that really just happen?" he asks. You open the small bag, the strong scent confirming that yes, you now possess spices worth more than you'd normally see in a year. "I think we just experienced the pilgrim's blessing Walter told us about. Strangers helping strangers." "Well, I'm not complaining," Edwin says, "though I've no idea what I'd do with a toothache besides pull the damn thing out. Let's hope we don't have to find out." You continue through the market, now with a specific goal, finding anything else you might need for the sea crossing. A seller of wooden goods offers small cups and bowls, essential for eating on the road. You bargain for 2 of each, using Edwin's skill at carving to appreciate the craftsmanship and drive a fair price. Near the centre of the market, a crowd has gathered around what appears to be some kind of performance. Standing on tiptoe, you catch glimpses of a man in motley clothes juggling knives while a companion plays a pipe. Nearby, a bear on a chain performs tricks for another audience, its handler calling commands in a language you don't understand. "Entertainment at the market?" Edwin asks, trying to see over taller heads. "Markets aren't just for buying and selling," explains a woman beside you, balancing a basket of eggs on her hip. "They're where news spreads, where people meet, where life happens. Half of London finds its marriage partners at Smithfield, I'd wager." Looking around, you can see what she means. Young men and women cast glances at each other across stalls. Children run in packs, playing games in the narrow spaces between vendors. Elders sit on makeshift benches, observing it all while sharing gossip and advice. A market, you realise, is a microcosm of medieval life itself. Commerce and community intertwined, the practical and social aspects of existence sharing the same space. As the day advances, the character of the market shifts. The serious business of the morning gives way to more leisurely afternoon activities. Wine and ale flow more freely. Music appears in scattered corners. The crowd grows louder, more festive. "We should head back soon," you suggest, noting the sun's position. "Still need to finish packing." Edwin nods reluctantly. "Just one more thing I want to see, the fortune teller." "Fortune teller? Really?" You raise an eyebrow. He grins sheepishly. "Curious what she'll say about our journey. Can't hurt to know what's ahead, right?" You're skeptical, but follow him to a small tent at the edge of the market. A wrinkled woman sits cross-legged on a carpet, a scarf covering her grey hair. For a small coin, she examines your palm, tracing the lines with a gnarled finger. "Long journey," she murmurs, her voice surprisingly deep. Water, mountains, desert, many people. She squints at your hand. Return different than you left. If you return. She looks up, fixing you with sharp eyes. Jerusalem changes a man, the journey more than the destination. It's vague enough to apply to anyone, you think, but something in her steady gaze makes the hair on your neck stand up. Edwin seems equally affected when she reads his palm. "Well, that was cheerful," he mutters as you leave. "If you return." Exactly what every traveller wants to hear. She's just trying to sound mysterious, you assure him, though the woman's words linger uncomfortably. "Come on, we need to get back." As you make your way out of Smithfield, the market's sounds and smells following you into the city streets, you can't help reflecting on how markets like this connect the medieval world. Goods, people, ideas, stories, all travelling along the same roads you're now travelling, creating a web of commerce and culture that spans continents. That evening, back at St. Bartholomew's, you carefully pack your new supplies. The ship leaves at dawn, and you need to be ready. 3 other pilgrims bound for France have joined your dormitory, and you share information about the crossing, pooling knowledge in the time-honoured tradition of travellers. The captain said 3 days if the weather holds, a grizzled pilgrim named John tells you. Pray it does. I crossed once in a storm, would have given my right arm to be back on solid ground. "Is it very bad?" Edwin asks, looking nervous. "Let's just say there's a reason they call it the sickness of the sea," John replies grimly. "Bring ginger if you have it. Helps settle the stomach." You don't have ginger, but you do have the cloves from the spice merchant. You wonder if they might serve the same purpose. "First crossing?" asks another pilgrim, a younger man named Peter who's making his second pilgrimage to Santiago. You both nod. "Stay on deck if they'll let you," Peter advises. "The air helps. Below decks, the smell alone will turn your stomach." "Wonderful," Edwin mutters. You sleep fitfully that night, mind racing with preparations and anticipation. The journey so far has been challenging, but still within the familiar bounds of England. Your language, your customs, your king's law. Tomorrow you'll leave all that behind, stepping into truly foreign lands. Dawn comes too quickly. You gather your belongings, thank the brothers for their hospitality, and make your way through quiet streets to the docks. The river is shrouded in early morning mist, giving the loading ships an otherworldly appearance as they prepare to depart. Your vessel is smaller than you expected, a chunky, round-bottomed trading ship with a single mast and high sides. Men hurry about the deck, loading last-minute cargo and checking ropes. The captain, a weather-beaten man with a voice like grinding stones, checks names against a crude list, collecting final payments from those who haven't paid in full. On board, he barks when he reaches you. Stow your things below and then report to Martin for your duties. You follow other pilgrims down a narrow ladder into the ship's hold, where space has been cleared among cargo barrels for passengers to sleep. The ceiling is low enough that you must stoop, and the air already smells of unwashed bodies, despite the early hour. Light filters weakly through hatch openings, leaving much of the space in shadow. "Cozy," Edwin comments, looking around dubiously. "Better than swimming," you reply, finding a relatively clean spot to leave your packs. Back on deck, you locate Martin, the ship's cook, a burly man missing 2 fingers on his left hand. He sets you to work immediately, peeling roots and vegetables for the crew's meal, carrying water, stoking the small fire in the ship's brick hearth. As you work, the ship comes alive around you. Orders are shouted in a sailor's jargon you barely understand. Ropes creak as sails are unfurled. The tide is turning, and with it your ship begins to move, pulled away from the dock by small boats before catching the river current. You and Edwin pause in your tasks, watching as London slowly recedes behind you. The Tower, St. Paul's, the bridge crowded with buildings, landmarks that seemed so permanent, now shrinking with distance. "No turning back now," Edwin says quietly. "No," you agree. "Only forward." The ship makes its way downriver toward the sea, the banks gradually widening, the water becoming more brackish. Other vessels pass going both directions, fishing boats, trading ships, even a magnificent royal barge with colourful pennants flying from its mast. By midday, the river has given way to the open sea, the coastline a distant line to your left. The ship rises and falls with larger swells, a motion entirely different from river travel. Your stomach lurches unpleasantly. "You're looking a bit green," Martin observes with a grin as you return to your kitchen duties. "First time at sea, eh?" You nod, not trusting yourself to speak. "Look at the horizon," he advises. "Not the deck, not the water. The horizon stays put when everything else moves." You try his suggestion, fixing your gaze on the distant meeting of sea and sky. Surprisingly, it helps. Your stomach settles somewhat, though a vague queasiness remains. Edwin is less fortunate. You find him at the rail, empty of everything he's eaten today and possibly several days before. "I'm dying," he groans when you approach. "Just push me overboard and be done with it." Apparently, it gets better after a day or so, you offer, patting his back awkwardly. Your body adjusts. "If I live that long," he moans. The day passes in a blur of work and waves. Most passengers suffer like Edwin, though a few veterans of sea travel move about the deck with steady steps, amused by the plight of first-time sailors. By evening, even the hardiest passengers seek shelter as a light rain begins to fall, driven horizontally by a freshening wind. Night at sea proves to be an eerie experience. The familiar darkness is broken by strange phosphorescent glimmers in the water. The ship's movement seems more pronounced without visual reference points. Sounds are different too. The constant creaking of timbers, the slap of waves against the hull, the snap of canvas as the wind shifts. Sleep comes in fits and starts, your body braced against the rolling motion. Even in slumber, the hold is crowded with miserable passengers, the air thick with the smell of sickness and fear. You chew one of the cloves the spice merchant gave you, its sharp taste providing some relief from the nauseating odours. Morning brings no land in sight, just endless water in all directions. Your seasickness has mostly passed, allowing you to appreciate the strangeness and beauty of this new environment. Seabirds wheel overhead. Once, a group of sleek bodies breaks the surface nearby. Dolphins. A sailor tells you good luck for the voyage. Edwin has survived the night, though he still looks pale and keeps to simple foods, the hard bread and dried fruit from your market purchases. "Never again," he declares weakly. "When we return from Jerusalem, I'm walking around the entire Mediterranean if I have to." You laugh. "That might take years. Better than one more day on this floating torture chamber," he insists. By the third day, land appears on the horizon. The coast of France. The captain orders sails trimmed as you approach the port of Calais, a walled city not unlike London in its general appearance, though obviously smaller. Foreign soil. The reality of it hits you as the ship docks and you prepare to disembark. You've left England behind, its language, its customs, its familiar patterns. Ahead lies true adventure. The gangplank lowers. With wobbly legs and uncertain hearts, you step onto the continent. Pilgrims, still but travellers now in a deeper sense. Strangers in a strange land, carrying only faith, hope, and whatever wisdom the road has taught you so far. Calais hits you like a slap to the face, not because it's so different from England, but because it's so similar, yet subtly wrong. The buildings resemble those in London. The people dress mostly like English folk, but the language washing over you makes no sense at all. a rapid stream of French that might as well be birdsong for all you understand. "Or what now?" Edwin asks, looking disoriented as you both stand at the edge of the harbour, packs on your backs. The ship that brought you has already begun unloading cargo, the captain clearly expecting passengers to sort themselves out. "We need to find the Pilgrim Road," you say, remembering advice from travellers back in London. "There's supposed to be a main route that leads south, then east toward Rome, then on to Jerusalem." "And how exactly do we ask for directions?" Edwin gestures at the dockworkers shouting in French. "I don't speak a word of whatever that is." You hesitate, realising the enormity of the language barrier for the first time. In England, your accent might have marked you as a provincial, but at least you could make yourself understood. Here, you're completely mute. Look for other pilgrims, you decide, or anyone who might speak English. You don't have to look far, just past the customs house where board officials barely glanced at your pilgrim badges before waving you through. A small group of men and women with staffs and scrips like your own are gathered around an older man who appears to be giving instructions. "Excuse me." You approach cautiously. "Do you speak English?" Several heads turn your way with obvious relief. "English, thank God," says one man about your age. "We were beginning to think we were the only ones." The older man at the centre of the group studies your pilgrim badges. "Jerusalem?" he asks, his accent thick but understandable. You nod. "Good, good. Join us. Safety in numbers. I am Brother Michel." He doesn't look like a monk with his practical travelling clothes and lack of tonsure, but perhaps the French religious dress differently. "Are you a priest?" Edwin asks, apparently thinking the same. Brother Michel laughs. No, guide. 20 years taking pilgrims across France, into Italy, sometimes beyond. Know the roads, the inns, the dangers. He taps his head. All here. A guide. You hadn't considered hiring one, assuming you'd simply follow established pilgrim routes. But faced with the reality of foreign lands and languages, the idea suddenly seems brilliant. "What's your fee?" you ask cautiously, thinking of your dwindling coins. "For English pilgrims to Reims Cathedral, 2 silver pennies each." He holds up 2 fingers to emphasise. "Includes sleeping arrangements, some meals, protection, translation." He points south. "Reims, 4 days. From there, many pilgrim groups to join for Italy. 4 days to Reims." Not even all the way across France, let alone to Jerusalem. But perhaps this is how long journeys work, in stages, with different guides and groups for different segments. You confer briefly with Edwin. 2 silver pennies is steep, but wandering lost in a foreign land would burn through your money even faster, and the protection of a group isn't insignificant. "We'll join you," you decide. Brother Michel nods approvingly. "Smart choice. We leave in 1 hour. Get food, water if you need. Long walk today." The French Pilgrim Road, you quickly discover, is better organised than anything in England. Stone markers with crude carved scallop shells indicate the route. Established inns specifically for pilgrims dot the way at regular intervals. Local people, recognising your badges and staffs, often greet you with bon chemin, good road, which Brother Michel explains is a traditional blessing for pilgrims. Your group consists of 15 travellers. You and Edwin, a family of 4 from Yorkshire, 3 scholars from Oxford, a widow making a pilgrimage for her late husband's soul, and 4 other assorted English pilgrims, plus Brother Michel. The shared language creates an instant bond, a little island of England moving through foreign territory. "Been to Jerusalem before?" you ask one of the scholars, a thin man named Thomas who walks with a slight limp. Twice, he confirms, once as a student, once as a tutor to a nobleman's son. He gestures at the open countryside around you. This is the easy part. France is well-travelled, relatively safe. Beyond the Alps, he shakes his head. That's when the real challenges begin. By the third day with Brother Michel, you've fallen into a rhythm. Wake before dawn, walk until midday, rest briefly, then walk until approaching dusk. Unlike your haphazard journey through England, everything here feels organised, established by centuries of pilgrims following the same paths. How many people make this journey each year? Edwin asks Brother Michel as you rest beside a small stream. The guide considers this. To Jerusalem, perhaps a few thousand from all of Europe. To Rome or Santiago, many more. Hundreds of thousands in a good year. The numbers are staggering. You try to imagine hundreds of thousands of people, more than all the villages in your shire combined, all travelling these same roads for faith or obligation or adventure. On the afternoon of the fourth day, Brother Michel gathers the group at a rise in the road. Over that hill, he announces with a dramatic gesture, Reims awaits. With her cathedral, one of the most beautiful in Christendom, your group quickens its pace, eager after days of walking to reach this milestone. You crest the hill and then stop, breath catching in your throat. In the distance, rising above a city of stone buildings and tiled roofs, stands something that defies comprehension. Massive twin towers reach toward heaven, flanking a circular window of coloured glass that catches the afternoon sun like a giant jewel. Even from miles away, the cathedral dominates the landscape, making everything around it seem small and temporary. Mother of God, Edwin whispers beside you. Did human hands build that? You can't answer, too struck by the sight. The modest stone church in your village could fit inside that structure a dozen times over. The manor house, the grandest building you'd seen before leaving home, suddenly seems like a child's toy in comparison. As you approach the city, the cathedral plays a game of hide and seek, disappearing behind buildings only to reappear even larger and more impossible than before. By the time you reach the city gates, your neck aches from staring upward. Brother Michel leads you through narrow streets that twist and turn before suddenly opening into a large square dominated by the cathedral. Here, at last, you stand before it properly and the true scale becomes apparent. The front facade rises higher than any structure you've ever seen, adorned with hundreds of stone figures, saints, angels, kings and monsters, staring down at the ant-like humans below. The three great doorways are deeply recessed, their arches carved with scenes from scripture. Above, the rose window you glimpsed from afar is even more spectacular up close, a perfect circle of stone tracery holding countless pieces of coloured glass. How, is all you can manage to ask, gesturing weakly at the impossible structure. Faith, answers Brother Michel simply, and generations of masons passing knowledge from father to son. This cathedral was begun by your grandfather's grandfather and may not be finished until your grandchildren are old. The square bustles with activity, not just pilgrims, but local people going about their business, vendors selling food and trinkets, children playing. The cathedral's presence seems to affect everyone differently. Some hurry past without a glance, accustomed to its magnificence. Others, like your group, stand transfixed. Still others kneel directly on the cobblestones, overcome with religious emotion. We stay there tonight. Brother Michel points to a large stone building adjacent to the cathedral, pilgrim hostel, but first we pay our respects inside. The interior hits you even harder than the exterior. You step through the massive doors and into a space that seems to defy the laws of nature. Soaring stone columns rise to impossible heights, supporting a ceiling that arches like the vault of heaven itself. Light streams through stained glass windows, painting the stone floor in patches of red, blue, green, and gold. The sound is different too, a hushed echo that makes whispers carry and footsteps fade into the vastness. The temperature drops noticeably, the thick stone walls creating a cool refuge from the summer heat outside. "Look up," Thomas the scholar murmurs beside you. The ceiling, those thin ribs of stone, support the entire roof. It's called a flying buttress system. Most cathedrals would collapse without them. You follow his gaze upward, trying to comprehend the engineering feat. In your village, even a 2-story building required massive timbers and thick walls. This cathedral soars with seemingly impossible delicacy, stone-shaped to defy gravity. Edwin has wandered ahead, his face upturned in wonder. "Will the Jerusalem churches be like this?" he asks when you catch up. "Different," Thomas answers. "Older style, Byzantine, more domes, fewer windows, beautiful in their own way." You move slowly through the cathedral, joining the flow of pilgrims and worshippers circulating among side chapels and reliquaries. Candles burn before statues of saints, priests murmur Latin prayers, incense hangs in the air, its sweet smoke curling toward the distant ceiling. Near the high altar, a group of pilgrims kneels before a golden box encrusted with jewels. Brother Michel explains in a hushed voice, "Reliquary contains a thread from the Virgin Mary's cloak, very sacred." The concept of relics isn't new to you. Even your village church claimed to have a splinter from the true cross, though the priest only displayed it on Easter. But the wealth and grandeur surrounding this relic is beyond anything in your experience. Gold, silver, gems that could feed your entire village for years, all dedicated to housing a single thread of cloth. "Is it really from Mary's cloak?" Edwin whispers, eyeing the reliquary skeptically. Brother Michel shrugs. "Who can say for certain? But faith doesn't always require proof." After paying respects at the main shrines, your group exits through a side door where a row of vendors has set up shops selling pilgrim souvenirs. Badges, ampoules, tiny flasks, meant to hold holy water, miniature relics, and blessed tokens of all kinds. Shouldn't they be doing that outside? Edwin frowns. Seems disrespectful. "Cathedral needs money for construction," Brother Michel explains pragmatically. "Vendors pay fees, pilgrims get souvenirs, everyone wins." A badge maker catches your eye, his tray displaying dozens of pewter pins and badges showing saints, cathedral facades, and religious symbols. For a small coin, less than you expected, you select a badge showing Reims Cathedral's distinctive twin towers. Proof that you were here, something to show the folks back home, if you make it back. The pilgrim hostel proves to be clean and well organised, clearly accustomed to handling large groups. Men and women sleep in separate dormitories on straw-filled mattresses that feel luxurious after days on the road. A simple meal of bread, cheese and vegetable pottage is provided, with pilgrims gathering in a large refectory to eat together. Conversation over dinner flows easily among your English group, now bonded by shared experiences. The scholars discuss architectural details of the cathedral that went over your head. The Yorkshire family debates whether to continue toward Jerusalem or turn west toward Santiago, which would be a shorter journey. The widow sits quietly, fingering a rosary and occasionally wiping tears. This is where we part ways with Brother Michel, Thomas informs you as you eat. He only guides to Rams. From here, we need to find another group heading toward the Alps. How do we do that, you ask, anxiety rising at the thought of being guideless again. Notice board at the hostel entrance. He points toward a wooden board covered with parchment scraps. Guides post their destinations, fees, departure times, or we join a larger pilgrim group already formed. After dinner, you examine the notice board. Most announcements are incomprehensible, written in French, Latin, or other languages you don't recognize. A few have crude drawings indicating destinations. One shows a mountain range, presumably the Alps, and what might be Rome beyond. This one's in English, Edwin points to a notice near the bottom. Pilgrim company forming for Rome via Alpine passes, departing Rams on Feast of St. John, 24 June. English speakers welcome. Inquire with Father Gregory at St. Jacques Church. That's 2 days from now. Time to rest, explore Rams, and prepare for the next leg of your journey. The following day, while seeking Father Gregory, you return to the cathedral, drawn back to its magnificence. Without Brother Michel's rushed tour, you take time to truly absorb the experience, sitting quietly in a side chapel where morning light streams through a window depicting Christ's baptism. Different in the morning light, isn't it? You turn to find Thomas the scholar sitting in a nearby pew, a small book open on his lap. The whole feeling changes with the sun, you agree, watching how the coloured light shifts across the stone floor. In our village church, there's only small windows with plain glass. Thomas nods, understanding. First time I saw a cathedral, I was about your age. Couldn't speak for an hour afterward. He gestures around. They're designed to overwhelm, to make you feel small before God, but also part of something enormous. It's working, you admit. Even the most skeptical pilgrim feels something in these spaces, Thomas continues. I've seen hardened soldiers weep and cynical merchants fall to their knees, stone and light and space working on the human soul. You sit in companionable silence for a while, absorbing the cathedral's peaceful atmosphere. Priests move about their morning duties. A woman lights candles before a statue of the Virgin. Somewhere distant, voices rise in Gregorian chant, the sound floating through the vast space, like something not quite of this world. Will you join Father Gregory's group? You eventually ask Thomas. Yes, he's well regarded, made the Jerusalem journey 6 times without losing a pilgrim. Thomas closes his book. I recommend you and Edwin do the same. The Alps are no place for inexperienced travellers alone. Following Thomas's advice, you locate Father Gregory at the small church of St. Jacques. Unlike Brother Michel's businesslike approach, Father Gregory, a tall, thin priest with a monk's tonsure and keen eyes, interviews potential travellers carefully, asking about your health resources and commitment to the journey. Jerusalem is not for the faint of heart, he tells you and Edwin seriously. Some who set out never return. Disease, accident, bandits, war, all claim pilgrims' lives. Are you prepared for these risks? You think of your family back home, probably assuming you're already dead since news travels so slowly. Of your comfortable bed and predictable life abandoned for this mad venture. We made vows, you answer simply. We'll see them through or die trying. Father Gregory studies you both, then nods slowly. Very well, 3 silver pennies each to Rome. Beyond that, you'll need to find another guide or company. It's a steep price, but includes protection through the dangerous Alpine passes and arrangements for lodging along the way. You pay from your dwindling funds, receiving in return a small token marked with Father Gregory's seal, proof that you've joined his company. That evening, your third in Reims, you attend Vespers at the cathedral. The service differs from what you're accustomed to, more elaborate, with incense, processions and complex choral arrangements, but the essential prayers remain familiar enough to follow. As the sun sets, light fades from the great rose window, plunging the cathedral into shadow, relieved only by hundreds of candles. Their flickering light animates the stone saints, making them seem almost alive in their niches. The effect is both eerie and beautiful, transforming the daytime magnificence into something more mysterious. After the service, you step outside to find the cathedral exterior transformed as well. Torches illuminate the facade, throwing the carved figures into dramatic relief. Against the night sky, the towers seem to reach all the way to the stars themselves. Imagine seeing this after walking for months, Edwin says quietly beside you, after facing dangers, hardships, maybe thinking you wouldn't make it, then turning a corner and seeing this. He gestures at the illuminated cathedral, almost makes you believe in miracles. You understand what he means. Growing up in your village, faith was abstract, stories told by the priest, rituals performed by rote, sins avoided out of habit more than conviction. But standing before this stone testament to belief, something shifts in your perception. Whether built by faith or just skilled human hands, the cathedral represents something beyond ordinary experience. We should rest, you say eventually, reluctant to leave but aware of tomorrow's preparations. Long road ahead. Edwin nods, but remains gazing upward a moment longer. Wonder what Jerusalem will be like, if this is just the beginning. You have no answer, but as you walk back toward the pilgrim hostel, the cathedral looms behind you like a promise of wonders yet to come, of mysteries yet to be revealed, of a journey that's changing you with every step, whether you recognize it or not. Tomorrow you join Father Gregory's company, heading south toward the Alps and Rome beyond, another stage in a pilgrimage that's becoming less about reaching a destination and more about the transformation that occurs along the way. The cathedral's bells ring out behind you, their deep tones vibrating through stone streets and human bones alike, calling to something ancient and wordless within. You walk on, carrying their echo with you into the night. Father Gregory's pilgrim company assembles in the pre-dawn chill outside the church of Saint-Jacques. 34 travellers from various parts of Europe, bound together by a common destination. Unlike Brother Michel's small English-speaking group, this one is a babel of languages and backgrounds. English over here, Father Gregory calls, motioning you, Edwin, and the other English pilgrims to one side. He speaks in several languages, organizing people into rough groups based on origin. English, French, German, Italian, Flemish. He points to each cluster in turn. When everyone is arranged, he continues in accented but clear English. Long journey ahead, many dangers. We stay together, we help each other. He repeats this in what you assume are the other languages, then switches back to English. Today, 10 miles south, hard walking in afternoon heat. Questions? No one has questions. With a nod, Father Gregory leads the group out through Reims' southern gate, the cathedral's towers silhouetted against the rising sun behind you. The first few hours are quiet, everyone still half asleep and getting a feel for the group's pace. By mid-morning, however, conversations begin to spark between the language groups. A German pilgrim who knows some English begins chatting with your little cluster. His name is Hans, a carpenter from Cologne who's making the pilgrimage to Rome to pray for his late wife's soul. Your first time so far from home? He asks, correctly reading your wide-eyed observation of everything around you. Never been further than the next village before this journey, you admit. Everything's so different, Hans laughs. Wait until we reach the mountains, or Italy beyond. France is practically your backyard compared to what's coming. The idea that France, already so foreign to your experience, is just the beginning makes your head spin a bit. You've heard of these other places in church sermons or tavern tales, but they've always been abstract concepts, not real destinations where your feet would actually walk. By midday rest, you've learned that Hans has made this journey once before, 10 years earlier. His practical knowledge proves invaluable. Which springs along the road have the best water, how to adjust your pack to prevent back pain, even how to treat blisters with a poultice made from roadside plants. "How do you know all this?" Edwin asks, watching Hans crush a particular leaf and apply its juice to a red spot on his heel. "My first pilgrimage, an old Venetian taught me," Hans explains. "Now I teach you. Next time, you teach someone else. This is how pilgrims survive, knowledge passed from one to another." As days pass on the road south, this pattern of knowledge exchange becomes familiar. A Frenchwoman shows several pilgrims how to weave a particular kind of grass into insoles that cushion tired feet. An Italian merchant demonstrates a method for preserving cheese using salt and cloth. You contribute your own knowledge of identifying edible plants learned from your village healer. Language, initially a seemingly insurmountable barrier, gradually becomes less problematic. You pick up basic French phrases through daily necessity, greetings, numbers, words for food and lodging. Hans teaches you some German. A friendly Italian named Marco makes a game of exchanging words during the long walking hours. "Aqua," he says, pointing to his water flask. "Water," you respond. "Pain," he continues, holding up bread. "Bread," you reply, and then attempt. "How do you say path in Italian?" "Sentiero," Marco grins. "Very good, you learn quick." These impromptu language lessons serve a practical purpose beyond simple communication. At inns and hostels, being able to ask for basic necessities in the local tongue earns you better treatment than speaking only English. Shopkeepers are more likely to give fair prices if you attempt their language rather than expecting them to understand yours. One evening, about a week into the journey with Father Gregory's group, you find yourself sitting around a fire outside a rural inn. The company has split into small clusters based partly on language but increasingly on shared interests or compatible personalities rather than origin. Your group includes Edwin, Hans, Marco, a French pilgrim named Jean who speaks some English, and Thomas the scholar from the Oxford group. The conversation, conducted in a mixture of languages with much gesturing and occasional translation, turns to food traditions from each person's homeland. "In my village," you explain, miming kneading motions, "we make bread with herbs inside, green plants from the forest." "Erbe selvatice," Marco supplies the Italian, then adds in broken English. "We do same in my town, but also sun-dried tomatoes and oil." "Tomatoes?" Edwin asks, unfamiliar with the word. Marco tries to describe them, but without a common reference, it's difficult. Thomas the scholar intervenes. "Red fruits from the New World," he explains. "Spanish ships bring them. Not common in England yet, but popular in southern Europe." This leads to a spirited discussion of foods none of you have tried. Strange fruits from distant lands, spices worth more than gold, dishes prepared in ways you'd never imagined. Jean describes a French method of preserving meat in its own fat that sounds bizarre but apparently keeps it edible for months without salting. "In Cologne," Hans contributes, "we make Christmas bread with nuts and dried fruits soaked in special wine. 3 days to prepare, but worth every minute." You think of the plain brown bread from your village oven, the same recipe passed down for generations without variation. The idea that bread could be something worth spending 3 days to create is revelatory. This is the true education of the road, not just seeing new places, but absorbing new ideas, expanding your understanding of what's possible. Each conversation plants seeds that will eventually bear fruit in changed practices, whether you consciously adopt them or simply find your perspective altered. The journey south continues, the landscape gradually changing as you move toward the Alps. Villages become smaller, further apart. The terrain grows increasingly rugged, forests thicker, paths steeper. Father Gregory pushes the group to maintain a good pace, aware that the mountain passes must be crossed before autumn brings early snow. One afternoon, you're walking alongside a Flemish merchant named Willem, who speaks excellent English thanks to years of trade with London wool merchants. The conversation turns to family traditions, and you mention the small wooden figures your grandfather used to carve during winter evenings. Ah, like this? Willem reaches into his pack and pulls out a tiny wooden bird, exquisitely detailed despite being no larger than his thumb. My father makes these, tradition in our region. The craftsmanship far exceeds anything you've seen in your village. You say as much, and Willem nods understanding. Each place has its own skills passed down through generations. In my town, wood carving; in others, metalwork or weaving or cheese making. He returns the bird to his pack. This is why travel matters. We learn what's possible beyond our own small circle. That evening, the company reaches a village nestled in a valley between increasingly dramatic hills. The local inn can't accommodate everyone, so Father Gregory arranges for half the group to sleep in the church porch, a common practice for pilgrims when proper lodging isn't available. You're among those in the church porch, spreading your cloak on the stone floor as a makeshift bed. A local man approaches, accompanied by his son, a boy of perhaps 12. In halting, heavily accented English, he asks where you're from. England, you answer. A small village you wouldn't know? The man nods, then speaks rapidly to his son in their local dialect. The boy runs off, returning minutes later with a woman, presumably his mother, carrying a basket covered with cloth. Please, the man gestures to the basket, which the woman uncovers to reveal bread, cheese, and what looks like a type of sausage you've never seen. For pilgrims, blessing on journey, you're touched by this unexpected generosity from complete strangers. Thank you, but we can't take your food without payment, you protest, reaching for your meagre coin purse. The man waves away your offer. No, we give. God bless pilgrims. He mimes eating, encouraging you to accept. This, too, is part of the Pilgrim Road, the network of kindness extended to travellers, especially those on religious journeys. You've experienced it repeatedly since leaving home. The miller who offered shelter, the spice merchant who gave you cloves, and now this family sharing their food with strangers whose language they barely speak. You accept with genuine gratitude, sharing the unexpected bounty with Edwin and the others sleeping in the church porch. The sausage turns out to be flavoured with spices you've never tasted, pungent and slightly sweet simultaneously. The bread has a different texture than English loaves, darker and denser with a distinctive tang. Why do they do this? Edwin wonders, chewing appreciatively. Give food to people they'll never see again? Thomas the scholar, sitting nearby, overhears, because someone probably did the same for them once, or because their cousin or brother is on pilgrimage somewhere else, and they hope he's being fed by strangers too. He breaks off a piece of cheese. The pilgrim routes create a kind of reciprocity that stretches across continents. A kindness here is repaid there, and the whole system sustains itself. The following morning, the village priest invites the pilgrims to attend Mass before departing. Though conducted in Latin, the ritual is familiar enough that you can follow along, the universal structure of the service transcending language differences. You notice small variations. Gestures made differently, prayers recited with slightly altered wording, but the core remains recognizable. After Mass, the village children gather around the foreign travellers, fascinated by your strange accents and clothing styles. One little girl reaches out tentatively to touch the pilgrim badge on your cloak, her eyes wide with wonder. "Jerusalem?" she asks, recognizing the symbol. You nod, and her face lights up. She turns to her friends, excitedly announcing something in her language that makes them regard you with newfound respect. To these children in their remote village, you're a living connection to places they've only heard about in church, holy sites that exist for them solely in scripture and sermon. It strikes you that your journey serves a purpose beyond personal devotion or fulfilling a vow. By walking these ancient routes, you become a courier of experience, bringing knowledge of distant places back to those who will never see them firsthand. The stories you'll tell upon returning home, if you return, will shape how your village imagines the wider world. The company departs mid-morning, climbing steadily into higher elevations. The air grows cooler, the vegetation subtly changing. Pine forests replace the mixed woods of lower regions. The path narrows, becoming steeper and more challenging. "Alps soon," Hans tells you, pointing ahead to where snow-capped peaks are occasionally visible through breaks in the nearer hills. 3, maybe 4 days to the passes. That evening, camped in a high meadow with no village nearby, Father Gregory organizes the company into cooking groups based on language. Each group contributes something from their remaining supplies to a communal meal, creating an impromptu feast of diverse foods. The French pilgrims produce a hard, aged cheese that's sharper than anything you've tasted. The German contingent contributes smoked sausage. The Italians add dried herbs that transform the bland pottage into something savoury and complex. Your English group offers the last of the honey purchased in London, which gets drizzled over hard bread for a simple dessert. As you eat, huddled near fires against the mountain chill, Marco teaches everyone an Italian song, a pilgrim's prayer for safe passage. The melody is simple enough that even those who don't understand the words can join in after hearing it once or twice. Soon the entire company is singing, 34 voices from different lands united in harmony. The song ends, and in the brief silence that follows, someone from the German group starts another, this one in their language, but clearly another traveller's tune. It passes like a torch through the different national groups, each contributing a song from their homeland. When it's the English pilgrim's turn, Thomas leads you in "The Road to Jerusalem," a popular pilgrim ballad you all know. Your voices rise together in the familiar words, and for a moment the homesickness that occasionally grips you eases. Here, under strange stars on a foreign mountainside, you've found a different kind of belonging, not to place but to purpose, to the ancient community of those who walk the pilgrim roads. Later, as the fires burn low and people prepare for sleep, you find yourself sitting with a mixed group. The conversation, aided by those who speak multiple languages, turns to beliefs and practices, not the formal doctrines of the church, but the folk traditions that vary widely from region to region. A French pilgrim describes how in his village, expectant mothers visit a certain sacred spring to ensure healthy children. A woman from Florence explains the elaborate rituals her city performs during plague times, including processions with specific saints' relics. Hans tells of a German tradition of placing bread on windowsills during winter solstice to feed the spirits of ancestors. You contribute your own village's custom of weaving special protective crosses from last year's harvest wheat to hang above doorways. As you describe the practice, you realize how closely it resembles a ritual the Italian woman mentioned earlier, though with different materials and at a different time of year. Same roots, different branches, Thomas observes. Many of our unique traditions likely began with common ancestors, then evolved separately as people migrated. The scholar's words prompt you to see your village customs in a new light, not as timeless practices existing in isolation, but as variations on themes shared across cultures, adapted to local conditions and needs over generations. This is perhaps the most profound education the journey offers, the recognition that human experiences, while diverse in expression, share fundamental similarities. Pain, joy, fear, hope, the desire for protection and meaning, these transcend language and custom. The French mother praying at her sacred spring wants exactly what the English mother wants when she hangs her wheat cross: safety for her child in a dangerous world. As you finally settle into your cloak for the night, the mountain air sharp in your lungs, you realize how much your perspective has expanded since leaving home. Your village, once the entire universe of your experience, now seems like a single thread in a vast tapestry. Important, yes, but connected to countless others in patterns you're only beginning to discern. Edwin, lying nearby, seems to sense your thoughts. Hard to imagine going back to the old life after all this, he murmurs drowsily. If we go back, you remind him, the journey is still long, the dangers ahead numerous. When we go back, he corrects, stubborn optimism in his voice. But we won't be the same, will we? No, you agree, looking up at unfamiliar stars. I don't think we will. Sleep comes easily, despite the hard ground, your dreams filled with snow-covered passes, Italian songs, and distant Jerusalem shimmering like a mirage on the horizon. 2 years, that's how long it takes you to complete the pilgrimage to Jerusalem and return to England. 2 years of walking thousands of miles across continents, crossing mountains and seas, navigating foreign lands and languages, facing dangers and wonders beyond imagination. 2 years that transform you from a provincial peasant who had never left his village into a man who has stood in the holiest places on earth. The journey beyond the Alps, through Italy, across the Mediterranean, and into the Holy Land was everything Hans and the others promised. Beautiful, terrible, awe-inspiring, and perilous in equal measure. You saw Rome's ancient grandeur, sailed from Venice with traders bound for Constantinople, walked dusty roads through lands ruled by people who worshipped differently than you. And finally, Jerusalem itself, the goal that seemed impossible when you first set out. The holy city proved to be nothing like you imagined, yet somehow exactly what your soul needed. You knelt at Christ's empty tomb in the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. You walked the Via Dolorosa. You fulfilled your vow. Edwin never made it to Jerusalem. A fever took him in a small Italian town south of Rome. Despite the best efforts of a local healer, you buried him there, promising to carry his memory back to his family. His pilgrim's badge, the one Walter gave him all those months ago in England, now hangs beside your own, a tangible reminder of your friend and the journey you began together. But that's all in the past now, though it feels like another lifetime. Today, you're walking the final miles toward home, and your heart pounds with each familiar landmark that appears. The old oak that gave your settlement its name comes into view, then the first outlying fields. Everything looks exactly as it did when you left, yet completely different through your travelled eyes. The first villager to spot you stops dead in her tracks, basket of washing falling from stunned hands. She crosses herself, mouth open. William Fletcher, she asks, as if addressing a ghost. Mother Mary preserve us. Is it really you? You nod, suddenly unable to speak past the lump in your throat. She lets out a cry that brings others running from nearby cottages and fields. Within moments, you're surrounded by familiar faces wearing unfamiliar expressions: shock, joy, disbelief. Hands touch your arms and shoulders, as if confirming you're real. "We thought you dead," old Thomas the blacksmith exclaims. "No word for 2 years." "How could there be word?" you manage to ask. "No one travels from Jerusalem to here." "Jerusalem," someone gasps. "You actually reached the holy city?" You touch the pilgrim badge on your cloak, proof of your journey's completion. The crowd murmurs in amazement. Questions flood at you from all sides. Did you see the Pope? Did you fight Saracens? Is it true the Holy Land is made of gold? Were you captured by pirates? The queries range from reasonable to ridiculous, revealing how limited their understanding of the world remains, just as yours was before you left. Through the crowd, a woman pushes forward, a small boy clinging to her skirts. Your wife. She looks older, her face lined with what you now recognize as the particular strain of uncertainty, the same expression you saw on the faces of women in villages across Europe whose men had gone to war or pilgrimage or work in distant cities. "You came back," she says simply, eyes searching yours. "I promised I would," you reply. The boy, half hiding behind her, must be your son, though he's grown so much you barely recognize him. He would have been 4 when you left. Now he's 6, regarding you with suspicious eyes that hold no recognition. "Do you remember your father?" your wife asks him gently. He shakes his head, pressing closer to her skirts. This is the price of pilgrimage rarely discussed. The fractured families, the lost time, the children who grow up with absent parents who return as strangers. You've seen it in villages across Europe, but now you're experiencing it firsthand. "He will remember again," you say, more confidently than you feel. "We have time." The manor steward appears, pushing through the gathered villagers. "So the pilgrim returns," he announces, looking you up and down. "The Lord will want to hear your tales. Come to the hall tonight after you've settled." You nod respectfully, though the deference you once felt toward the steward and local lord has been tempered by your experiences. You've seen real kings and emperors now, grand cities and magnificent courts. The local manor house, once the most impressive building in your world, will look very different through your travelled eyes. Your wife leads you home, the same one-room cottage you left 2 years ago. Inside, everything is achingly familiar, yet subtly changed. New rushes on the floor, a different arrangement of cooking pots, small domestic evolutions that occurred in your absence. "We held the planting for you this year," your wife says, moving about the room with nervous energy. "Your father helped until his joints got too bad. Then your brother came from the next village when he could spare time." The practicalities of survival continued while you pursued spiritual goals. This too you've seen repeated across the pilgrim routes, life carrying on in the absence of those who depart. "How did you live?" you ask quietly. "Without my labor." She pauses in her movements. "It wasn't easy. I took in washing, helped the miller's wife with baking. The priest gave us alms sometimes, after I told him why you'd gone." A small, proud smile touches her lips. "We managed." You unpack your few possessions, laying out items collected during your travels. A small vial of water from the Jordan River, a fragment of olive wood from Gethsemane, pilgrim badges from various shrines, a crude map drawn on parchment showing your route. Your son watches with growing curiosity as these exotic objects appear. When you unwrap a small carved camel made by a craftsman in Jerusalem, his reserve finally breaks. "What's that animal?" he asks, pointing. "A camel," you tell him, placing the wooden figure in his hesitant hands. "They use them like we use horses, but they can go many days without water. They have special stomachs that store it." His eyes widen. "Really? Really? I rode one outside Jerusalem. They sway like this when they walk." You demonstrate the rolling gait, making him giggle for the first time. It's a start, a small connection rebuilt through shared wonder at the world's strangeness. That evening at the manor house, you become a reluctant celebrity. The Lord himself, who rarely took notice of you before, now hangs on your every word as you describe the holy places. The priest peppers you with theological questions. Even the most travelled merchant in the area listens raptly to your descriptions of Constantinople's markets. And the people there, they truly worship differently? The Lord's wife asks, fascinated and slightly scandalized. Yet they still call themselves Christians. They follow Christ in their own way, you explain carefully, conscious of the priest's attention. Their churches look different from ours, and some prayers and rituals vary, but the faith's core remains the same. This diplomatic answer satisfies her while avoiding any suggestion of heresy, a skill you've honed through countless similar conversations across Europe, where curiosity about other Christian traditions often walks a fine line between interest and suspicion. And Jerusalem itself, the Lord asks eagerly, is it as glorious as they say? You consider how to answer. The physical Jerusalem was dustier, smaller, and more divided than the mythical city most Christians imagine. Yet the spiritual Jerusalem, the feeling of standing where Christ stood, exceeded anything you could have anticipated. Jerusalem is... You begin, then pause, searching for words to bridge the gap between their expectations and the complex reality. It's both more and less than the stories. The stones are just stones, but knowing whose feet walked on them changes everything. The Lord looks slightly disappointed by this philosophical answer, clearly having hoped for tales of golden streets and constant miracles. But the priest nods thoughtfully, understanding the deeper meaning. Days pass, then weeks, as you readjust to village life. The familiar rhythms of agricultural work, so deeply ingrained before your departure, now feel strange in their repetitive simplicity. Your hands, which have performed 100 different tasks across thousands of miles, find the plough handle both familiar and foreign. You notice things about your village that were invisible before, how isolated it is, how limited its resources, how narrow its horizons. Yet you also see strengths previously taken for granted, the close-knit community support, the deep knowledge of local land and weather, the practical skills honed across generations. The way villagers perceive you has permanently changed. Children follow you around, begging for stories of distant lands. Adults bring small ailments and questions, assuming your travels have given you special knowledge or healing abilities. The priest consults you on matters of doctrine, particularly when they relate to holy places you've seen firsthand. Your perspective on religion itself has shifted subtly but profoundly. Before the pilgrimage, faith was a set of rules and rituals performed without much thought. Now it's something lived and questioned, enriched by seeing how differently it's expressed across cultures while maintaining essential truths. One Sunday after Mass, the priest asks you to speak to the congregation about your journey, standing before your neighbours, people you've known all your life, but who now regard you with a mixture of respect, curiosity, and sometimes unease. You struggle to distill 2 years of transformation into words they can comprehend. The roads to Jerusalem are long and hard, you begin simply. Many who set out never return. I lost dear friends along the way. You touch Edwin's badge alongside your own. But what I found was worth the journey. They listen in rapt silence as you describe walking the path of Christ, kneeling at sacred sites, experiencing the diversity of God's creation through landscapes and peoples unlike anything in England. I learned that the world is much larger than we imagine, yet people everywhere share the same basic needs and hopes. A mother in Constantinople wants the same things for her children as mothers here. Farmers in the Holy Land watch the sky for rain with the same anxiety we do. You look around at familiar faces. We are more connected than we know. This idea that distant, supposedly exotic peoples are fundamentally similar to themselves seems to both reassure and disappoint your audience. Like the Lord, some clearly hoped for tales of bizarre customs and inhuman foreigners that would confirm their worldview rather than expand it. After the formal talk, individuals approach with specific questions. A young man contemplating his own pilgrimage asks practical advice about costs and routes. Women inquire about how their counterparts in distant lands manage cooking or childcare. The blacksmith wants to know about tools and techniques used by his foreign colleagues. These conversations continue for months as you gradually become a bridge between your isolated village and the wider world, translating your experiences into frameworks villagers can understand and potentially apply to their own lives. Some innovations you brought back face resistance, suggestions for new crops or farming methods, ideas about hygiene or food preparation learned in more advanced regions. "We've always done it this way" becomes a refrain you hear often, yet other ideas are cautiously adopted, particularly when they demonstrate clear benefits without threatening established social orders. Your son, initially so wary, gradually warms to you through the universal language of stories. Each night by the hearth, you tell him tales of your journey, simplified for his understanding, but rich with sensory details. The taste of Italian olives, the sound of ships' timbers creaking in Venetian harbours, the feeling of Jerusalem's ancient stones worn smooth by countless pilgrim hands. "Were you scared?" he asks one evening as you describe crossing the Alps in early winter, snow making treacherous footing on narrow mountain paths. "Often," you admit honestly, "but fear is part of any journey worth making." "Will I go to Jerusalem someday?" he wonders, eyes shining with adventure's promise. The question gives you pause. You know firsthand both the transformative power and the very real dangers of such a journey. Would you wish it for your child? "Perhaps," you answer carefully, "if God calls you to it. But remember, not all pilgrimages require leaving home. Sometimes the journey that matters most is the one that happens inside us, right where we are." It's a lesson you've observed repeatedly along the pilgrim routes. Some travellers walked thousands of miles without their souls moving an inch, remaining as closed-minded at journey's end as at its beginning. Others underwent profound transformations without ever reaching their intended destinations, finding enlightenment in unexpected detours and challenges. As seasons pass, you settle more comfortably into your old life, though changed irrevocably by what you've seen and done. Your stories gradually become part of the village's collective knowledge, referenced in conversations and retold, often with embellishments, by those who never travelled themselves. A year after your return, a merchant passing through mentions meeting pilgrims in London recently arrived from Italy. Among their news, a new cathedral being constructed in Florence unlike anything seen before, its dome designed to rival ancient Roman engineering. This small connection to the continuing world beyond your village brings unexpected joy. The places you visited aren't frozen in time as in your memories. They continue evolving, experiencing their own histories. Somewhere in that Italian town where Edwin rests, life carries on. In Jerusalem, other pilgrims now stand where you once stood, having their own transformative moments. One spring evening, as you sit outside your cottage watching the sunset, your wife joins you in companionable silence. After a while, she speaks. "Do you ever regret it, the pilgrimage?" You consider the question honestly. The journey cost you 2 years with your family. Friendships cut short by death, physical hardships that left permanent marks on your body. Yet it also gave you a broader understanding of humanity, deeper faith and experiences beyond price. "No," you answer finally, though I regret the time lost with you and our son, but I'm not the same man who left here. She studies your face in the fading light. No, you're not, she agrees. You see differently now. What do you mean? Before, you looked at this village and saw all there was. Now you look at it and see just one small part of something much larger. She gestures toward the horizon. Your eyes always drift that way now, toward the wider world. Her perception startles you with its accuracy. Even now, watching familiar fields at sunset, part of your mind wanders to other horizons. The Mediterranean glittering at dusk, alpine peaks catching last light, Jerusalem's walls glowing gold. Is that bad, you ask? She considers. Different, she says finally. Not worse, not better, just changed. She takes your hand, work roughened like your own. You brought back more than just those trinkets and badges. You brought back new eyes. Now you're helping others see differently too. This, you realize, is perhaps the most valuable function of the medieval traveller, not just to make personal pilgrimages, but to serve as conduits of knowledge and perspective for communities that remain physically rooted. Your journeying feet created ripples that continue spreading outward, subtly changing your village through stories, ideas, and expanded possibilities. That night, as you drift towards sleep in your familiar bed, so different from the countless varied places you've rested over your long journey, you find yourself deeply grateful, not just for the pilgrimage completed or home safely reached, but for the privilege of straddling worlds, of belonging simultaneously to this small village and to the vast, interconnected tapestry of humanity you've glimpsed beyond it. Your final thought before sleep claims you is of roads, the countless paths crisscrossing continents like veins carrying the lifeblood of medieval society. Roman roads still straight after centuries, muddy tracks between market towns, mountain passes marked only by cairns, ancient trade routes across deserts. All of them connecting people and places in an intricate web that most never see in its entirety, but that exists nonetheless, binding humanity together across seemingly insurmountable distances. Medieval peasants weren't stuck in one place after all. They travelled for markets, for pilgrimages, for work, for warfare, for countless reasons, and when they returned, if they returned, they brought back more than souvenirs. They brought expanded horizons that, person by person and story by story, gradually connected even the most isolated villages to the wider medieval world. As you finally surrender to sleep, the road still calls somewhere deep within you. Perhaps someday you'll answer it again. But for tonight, the journey continues in dreams, carrying you once more along distant paths, even as your body rests safely home.